Good evening, everyone. I'm calling to order our executive session of the Methuen School Committee being held today, Wednesday, May 27th, 2026, at 5:35 p.m. here in the Media Center at Methuen High School. As a reminder, you can watch live on Channel 6 Comcast and Channel 31 Verizon, and the event will be also live streamed on the MPS Events YouTube channel. This meeting is being recorded and will be made available for viewing on the Methuen Public Schools website. Please note, executive sessions are not televised or recorded. However, we will be coming back into open session after the conclusion. Can I get the secretary to call roll?
Yes. Mayor Beauregard. Member Willett.
Yes.
McCarthy Sorois.
Yes.
Keegan.
Yes.
Baez.
Here.
Donovan Grassi is here. And DiZoglio.
Yes. Do I have a motion to accept the agenda?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, 6-0. Let's stand for the flag salute. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I don't see anyone here for public participation, so I'll close public participation. Executive session pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, subsection 4, to discuss the deployment of security personnel or devices or strategies with respect to their safety. Do I have a motion to enter executive session?
So moved.
Second.
Motion goes to Member Bias, second to Member Keegan. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Opposed? Oh, sorry. Opposed? Ayes have it. We will now go into executive session, and we will reconvene into open session to conclude executive session once we wrap up. Thank you. Thank you. We're coming out of executive session. I will take a roll call to end this meeting, and then we will go right into our next meeting, workshop business meeting. Madam Secretary, please take roll to end executive session.
Okay. Vice Chair DeZoglio.
Yes.
Donovan Grassi, yes. Member Baez.
Yes.
Keegan.
Yes.
Kathy Royce.
Yes.
Yes.
And Beauregard.
6-0. Great. We have now ended executive session. I am going to go right into the business and workshop for session of May 27th. Good evening, everyone. The school committee workshop business session of May 27, 2026 will now come to order. This meeting is being recorded and will be made available for viewing on the Methuen Public Schools website. Secretary, please take roll.
Vice Chair DeZoglio.
Yes.
Member Donovan Grassi, present. Member Baez.
Present.
Member Keegan.
Present.
Member McCarthy Royce.
Present.
Member Willett. And Mayor Beauregard. Absent.
May I have a motion and a second to accept the agenda for tonight?
So moved.
Second.
Member Keegan, seconded by Member Baez. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, 6-0. Has anyone signed up for public participation? No one on public participation?
No, I believe you have an email.
We do. And I have it right here.
Do we need to do the flag salute again?
Do we need to
Sorry.
accept the agenda?
We just did.
I thought we were calling the roll. Okay, thank you.
We accepted the agenda. That was your
Accepted.
second. You seconded it.
Yeah, that was accepting.
Yep. Thank you, Member Bias, for keeping me honest, though. We could do the flag salute again. I mean, we had it the last call, but we could do it now, too. Well, yeah, so we can, we'll stand for the flag salute.
Allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, so the public participation that we have tonight. Good evening. I'm writing to express the concerns that myself and many other parents have regarding the conditions at the Timony Middle School during last week's extreme heat. The conditions themselves were deeply concerning, but so was the lack of communication to families throughout the day. Thankfully, some teachers were reaching out to families directly, saying things like, if you feel the need to come get your child, please do so. It's too hot to focus and learn successfully. That made it clear the situation inside the building was far more serious than what was being communicated by the district, which is why some parents went to dismiss their children early. Unfortunately, I was not one of those parents because I did not get the message or see the email sent around 1:30 until much later in the day. Instead, my son walked through the door after school visibly upset and said, "Mom, why didn't you come get me?" It was awful. Hearing that honestly broke my heart. At first, I thought, there is no way it could have been that bad. But then I started hearing from parents, teachers, and even kids, it was all anyone could talk about. This is what I learned from those conversations. Students and staff were sitting in unbearable hot classrooms with one room reportedly reaching 98 degrees and no airflow because windows can now be opened. Airflow because windows cannot be opened. Some students were not even allowed outside for PE and recess. There were classrooms being relocated and even sitting in hallways for the rest of the day. Children were walking around with ice bags on their heads. There were long lines at the nurse's office. Students were becoming extremely ill, according to one staff member, and even a few students reportedly fainted. As a parent, that is unacceptable. There should be a clear communication and emergency response plan when conditions inside the school building being impacting student health and safety. No student can properly learn, focus, or regulate themselves while they are overheated, dehydrated, uncomfortable, or being physically sick. I believe families deserve honest answers, and while I may already know some of them, I think the district owes those answers publicly to the families affected. How long has the district known there were issues with the cooling system? Was this ever discussed publicly in maintenance reports? What temperature is considered unsafe for students and staff? At what point does the district decide conditions are no longer appropriate for learning? If conditions had reportedly become severe enough by late morning, why wasn't a robocall sent to families at 11:30 instead of relying on an email many parents did not see until much later in the day? To be completely honest, I left many of us wondering whether the email was sent out of genuine concern for students and staff or because there was drama performance scheduled that evening and parents would be entering the building. Hopefully, these concerns and questions will be taken into consideration during the district's discussion regarding emergency protocols moving forward. Thank you, Kristen Maxwell, 5 East Prospect Street. Anyone else? Seeing none? Moving on. School choice public hearing.
I'll make a motion to enter into public hearing.
Second to Member Willett. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Is there anyone signed up for the school choice public hearing? Seeing none. At this time, we will close the school choice public hearing and go into the workshop business portion of the meeting. Is there a motion to conclude?
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Do you have any discussion, Member Baez, or do you want?
When you close public hearing, I just wanted to change the order of business and move up number 9, 2026-2027 school choice vote approval right after the close of public hearing, just so we could have it all in one and get it out the way.
Apologies, Member Baez, but because we have already accepted the agenda as is, we can't motion to move it.
Thank you for the clarification. I appreciate it.
All right, we'll move on to approval of the minutes. May I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes of April 27th, 2026?
So moved.
Second? Is there a second?
Second.
Member Baez seconded. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. May I have a motion and a second for the approval of minutes of April 30th, 2026?
So moved.
Second.
Second, Member Baez. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I'm abstaining because I was not present for that meeting. So, 5-0-1. May I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes of May 5th, 2026?
So moved.
Second.
Wait a minute, what date is that?
May 5th, 2026.
Okay, thank you.
Member Keegan motioned, seconded, Mr. Baez.
Yep.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, 6-0. All right. Moving on, strategy plan, quarterly update. Madam Superintendent?
Thank you. I'm going to share my screen, show the presentation to folks at home.
Thank you.
Okay, so this is our quarter four update for our second year of our 3-year strategy plan for district improvement. I wanted to walk you through some of the highlights since the last quarterly, and then also prepare for our next workshop meeting, which will be our final workshop of the year, to give you a summary of where we stand at the close of year 2, heading into year 3. So our first objective, as you know, is to accelerate literacy development and language acquisition across all subject areas. And to this point, we have initiated or are deep into the key actions and priorities listed here. Tonight, I wanted to share with you our end-of-year benchmark screening data for grades K through 8. At the last quarterly, I shared the high school data, and I also wanted to share with you our 2026 access scores in terms of our students who have failed, which is the identification for students who have reached the threshold score on the access test to now be designated as former English learners. And those students are still monitored for 4 years after having achieved those marks. So this graphic here demonstrates our beginning of the year, middle of the year, and end of year benchmarking data for grades K through 4. And this is the composite score for the DIBELS M-Class assessment. And you might remember that although we have been in DIBELS for some years, this is our first year of having that more automated version that helps with data collection, grouping students, signaling where there is a need, and how to potentially respond. So the blue indicates students who are above, the green at, yellow below, and the red well below. And as I've shared previously, and if you recall, our humanities supervisors were with us last workshop, the colors simply indicate the amount of support that students will need to, in fact, achieve what we're calling proficiency or grade level status for reading. So whereas at the beginning of the year, 21% of the district was shown to be above, at this point, 32% of our district is showed to be above where we would expect them to be in their grade level at this time of year. 29% are shown to be at or right where they should be. The 16% indicates that there may be an area where there is a need of extra support to help that student be marked as grade level. And then the 23% indicates there may be a couple of areas where students need additional support in order to grow. So in our first year of a brand new ELA curriculum, I'd like to say kudos to our teachers who have embraced it wholeheartedly. Typically, you would expect 3 years of implementation in order to say that the program is fully adopted and operating efficiently throughout the district, and at that point, you would expect to see growth. So we are pleased to see overall trends in a positive direction in just this first year of implementation. I also separated the end-of-year benchmarks by grade level. And so this screen here shows our kindergarten students and some growth demonstrated as well. Over the summer and also into the fall, we'll continue with some professional development opportunities for teachers. And we've been talking with Amplify primarily about how to support teachers in not only administering DIBELS, but using the data, I guess, in a way that's readily accessible for themselves and their teammates to figure out how to help students quickly and efficiently. So we look forward to that as well. In our grade 1, I think visually at least shows the most significant improvement from beginning of year to end of year. And I do not think that it is by chance that this is also the grade that our high dosage tutoring focused on, and that was the grant that we had received from DESE. So if you recall, that grant allowed us to work with students who were in the red categories and some yellows in grade 1. We invited them to be dropped off early to school to work with our in-house tutors who are our teachers and reading specialists with a program that was provided by DESE through School Kit, and also we took on the professional development, the family groups. So I'll be interested to pull those students specifically who participated to see the growth, to see if that is by chance or not. And then we have our grade 2 data, also improving in our students above and at grade level. Grade 3, what's interesting here is that the blue category had very significant growth in the above. whereas in the grades we saw preceding, there seemed to be trends in all directions. I mean, increasing in a positive direction in all levels. And then grade 4 is the area that's most similar to the middle of the year benchmark. And so these benchmarks do change by grade and by time of year. So it's not as though students who scored a certain way at their beginning or middle of the year benchmark made no progress at all by the end of year. In fact, we would expect them to be further along at the end of year, because though the bar changes, as does the time of year. So still some work to do there in terms of our reading benchmark scores in this single data point. We look forward to leaning into our progress monitoring data and continuing to work with reading specialists and humanities supervisors to drive and improve literacy instruction across all subject areas as our objective specifies, not just in ELA. And then the second aspect of this objective I wanted to highlight this evening is our access data. So at this point, and this information was pulled from Elevation, which is our tool that captures all of our data on our English learner and former English learner students. At this point, we have 1,220 English learner students in the district, and we have 465 students who have failed or are monitored, having received that threshold score on their access exams, and then another 169 who have exited English learner status and also FEL status and no longer require the monitoring. And I thought it was interesting to show in this graphic below the composite levels of our English learners in Methuen Public Schools at this point in time. So as you're aware, there is a wide array of proficiency in each of our 4 domains that an English learner may demonstrate. And when we're talking about an English learner, it's important to understand the nuance between each individual student and the strengths that they're bringing to us and how we can accelerate their growth in terms of learning English. So at this point in time, most of our English learners are falling into the category of what we would call a 3 or developing. So that's 495 students. Those who are expanding is 207. Just entering or newcomer students would fall into this entering category as well, is 239, and emerging is 238. There's a general trend across the state, and we're not immune to it, where there's fewer newcomer students or level 1 students than we have seen in the past 5 years or so, and that's true of us as well. So when we're thinking about someone reaching that threshold score to be considered a former English learner, I like to also consider the place where our students are starting at the beginning of the year and what is an expected level of growth. So here I have separated the composite levels, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and the percentage of those students who achieved a score that would qualify them to be a FEL or a former English learner. So as you may expect, the highest percentage of our students were those in level 4 who were closest to proficiency. And then level 3, level 2, in level 2 and level 1, we must have had some very motivated students to have reached what would be a level of literacy and English proficiency that would qualify them to be a FEL. Also, what's very important to us as a district when we're looking at data is to make sure that our English learner students are making significant or adequate growth year to year. DESE gives each of our English learner students a target. And so while it's sometimes unreasonable to expect a level 1 or 2 student to in fact exit that identification by the end of 1 year, it is reasonable for them to make typically 1 year's worth of growth or 1 proficiency level. Overall, DESE expects on average that it would take a student approximately 6 years to go from level 1 through to become a former English learner. So when we have students enroll in high school, understanding that runway is much shorter and we have a shorter duration of time with them before they leave our public school system, those targets increase in terms of the growth that we want students to make. And I mention the targets because they're not quite out yet. We've become crafty at figuring out what we think the percentage will be in terms of students meeting their targets, but we're hesitant to share those now because they do change once DESE calculates that percentage. But that percentage, the percentage of students reaching their target for language acquisition, is a portion of our accountability data, both for the district and by school. And so that's important to us on that level as well. And then finally, I thought this may be of interest to you, as it is to me. I was curious about our English learners by grade level and how they fared on the access test. We have, as many districts do, a subset of students who have been long-term English learners, meaning that they were identified as such when they came to us or registered, have passed the 6-year average growth and are still in the English learner qualification simply because they haven't reached that score in access. There's a variety of reasons for that. We do find that crop of students at the high school often. Sometimes we have other data points such as MCAS and other exams in the classrooms that suggest their English is actually quite good. But it's the score and the access that is the only score that matters in terms of exiting that status. So I wanted to mention that as well. And you'll notice here, our ELE supervisors were not surprised to see that predominantly our students in grade 4 were those that received the qualifying FEL score on this current year's 2026 access exam. And they did point out that they wanted me to share with you that there are clusters of the exam. And grade 4 and 5 is really where we want to capitalize on helping students exit, because when we move to the 6th through 8th grade cluster, and then again from the 9th through 12th grade cluster, the exam becomes more difficult in terms of what's expected for students. So we have really been focused on that. The Timony in particular had really high numbers in terms of exiting our English learner students into FEL status in the grade 4 range. And so that is just a little visual for you on that end. And I'll pause at the end of objective 1. If there's questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
I'll start on this end of the table and I'll make my way around. Member Baez?
Thank you, Mr. Vice, through you. Thank you for this first part of the presentation. Madam Superintendent, my first question is regarding some trends. So in the benchmarking for the end of the year, K through 4, and I go through each grade level, I see that in 3 of the 5 grades at least, from beginning of the year to middle of the year, the wall below seems to go up, and then obviously it comes down at the end of the year. Does that data point, does that fact say anything to you? Like what does that bring up any analysis of that data?
I would attribute that to us. We launched the program, our ELA program, at the end of September. And we did move up the benchmark dates this year to make sure that we had time to efficiently go through the data prior to going into summer. I would say that's familiarity with the program, both on the teacher's side, but also on the student side, because they need to learn the routines of the classroom, have an anticipation of what's coming next before they're able to understand and take in new learning. So I'm not surprised by that. I know that was concerning when everyone works so hard and you want to see the results right away. But I was frankly surprised to see the level of growth that we did by the end of the year being year 1.
My last question before first round ends is, does this data generally, because I have no idea, so just curious, does this data in terms of the benchmarking factor into evaluations for IEPs? Like if an administrator or a teacher sees this data, for a student or whatnot, is it factored into whether or not the student receives an IEP evaluation or not?
So this data would be useful, and I'm going to get to that later in the presentation also, about when teachers or any educator is recommending a student or putting a student up for, as we say, tiered support and looking at interventions, which is a process that does sometimes ultimately end in a referral to special education. But this is a data point that we would look at in terms of growth, particularly if we had already identified areas where a student should be improving, have delivered intervention, have progress monitored, and if we haven't seen growth in that area, that would be concerning. But this certainly isn't in and of itself the only data point.
Thank you for the time, Vice.
Thank you. I'll pass the reins over to the mayor after this round. So, Madam Donovan.
So, Dr. Golubsky, have the parents received reports on the end of the year findings?
I believe those will be going home with their end of the year.
Okay, great.
Yep,
Thank you.
documentation.
And in terms of the access testing, do we know, I'm looking at the numbers, how many of these students who took the test are duly identified as special ed students and ELL students?
I could get that for you,
Great.
and I will say that some of our students, for instance, those that take the MCAS alt, may also have specified in their IEP that they are eligible for the Access alt as well. Not all, but some, depending on their needs. So we're careful with that. Also, there's a number of accommodations that aren't necessarily the alt, but accommodations that some are similar to MCAS, some are different, to which our students are entitled.
Right, okay, thank you.
Member Willett.
Yeah, just to follow up on grade 4, because that seems to be, that's a nexus of students exiting with the qualifying score, and at the same time, too, having scores at or like well below or below qualifying for what we're doing at Dibbles. And I was wondering if that's a dual factor of, you know, they're acclimating to the system, but they're scoring proficient to exit out of the English language examination, but they still have great difficulty with the Dibbles and gaining knowledge of English language. Would that be a factor? Because you have the cohort of grade 3 and grade 4. And then a follow-up question would be, it looks like it smooths out through the succeeding grades, but then you have in grade 10 an upgrade. And is that because we have a transitory population that comes in at that moment in time? And what can we do as a district to help that population? And if in fact that's the population that might be arriving after October 1st, so maybe working with our legislative delegation. Because I see the trend lines of grade 3 and 4, which are like major clusters, and then also like in terms of exiting from the qualifying scores for ELL, but also it was kind of stagnant with the scores at below and well below. So at beginning of the year versus end of year. The other ones were making progress, but except for that grade level. So I'd be just curious on that front. But I could be too looking at the wrong, because I think it is grade 3 was the highest for English language learners. Actually, grade 2 followed by grade 3 and then grade 4, so that's a cluster. And then you had grade 4 was the one that was exiting the most with the examination, but they're the ones that had the greatest difficulty still with the Dibbles. And then at the end was, all of a sudden, you had this great cohort of about 102 in grade 10 that qualified as English language learners. Again, we no rush because we have the summer, just to learn about that cohort more, if it's transient, is it coming in from other parts? Is there something we can do to help as a school district? And then also, is it an impact every year with the in terms of counting the numbers with October 1st. I think that's been a yearly problem. So that was, if you can answer that, please. Thank you.
Sure. And I'll look into it more deeply, but I do think there's some validity to saying that there's an interaction there between the reading, the access scores. In our ELA programs, and traditionally K-1-2 has a heavy foundational skill component, and in 3 and 4 it's present, but it's more integrated with the program. So I could see, depending on the composite score of the student through the screener or previous access when they join us, I can see them not being exposed to those foundational reading skills as often or in the length of time as students in K-1-2. And certainly it is more difficult when you enter our school district or any school district in the country, really. The expectations and the higher grade levels, it can be very, very challenging. So one thing that we've done at the high school, when we do have newcomer students come in who are expected to earn credits and meet the graduation requirements, when we have a student transition to, say, a level 3 proficiency and are placed into a mainstream English course, sometimes they're rolling into British literature or contemporary issues, which is quite a departure from where they had been previously. We have added a number of co-taught sections. So whereas previously we had co-taught sections between a general education teacher and a special education teacher, we've done the same, except we have substituted an English learner education teacher in place of a special education teacher to try to come at those classes from 2 directions. And we've seen a lot of growth there. But there are pockets that I can dig into and give you a better portrait of who the students are within those pockets that you identified.
And I think the other members of the committee also highlighted if it's dual with the IEPs, ELL, that nexus. So again, we are trying to improve the test scores, but you also have the universe involved. You have ELL, you have IEPs. So I was just curious on that, and then also going more into a deep dive about that 102 in grade 10. And again, if that's might be something that's going to be a perennial problem and something that we might want to approach the legislative delegation on. Because if we can document that and also provide additional services, even if it's further instruction similar to a career opportunity center, something that we can tackle that audience as best as we can. Thank you.
Thank you. And I hadn't pointed out earlier too, just for clarification, the access exam is really gauging academic language, which is different from casual or colloquial language. So sometimes we interact with students who have a really good handle on English casually, but it's in that academic setting with academic language, there's a little bit of a challenge.
Member Sorois.
You spoke about the tutors that were critical with grade 1 this year. Was that a grant, did you say? And are we getting that grant again next year? Is that something we can apply for?
The application hasn't come out yet. We did apply for it in the summer last year. We were not selected for the initial round in the fall, and then we got an email just at the start of 2026 that said we were in for this round, and we had 3 days to accept if we wanted it. So the staff worked really quickly, calling families. Families were eager for their students to participate. And we were provided a vendor who we didn't know much about, but that was part of it. And so we went with it, and I think that was very helpful. Also, again, grade 1 is really a key grade in terms of the amount of time that they spend in the foundational skills of our new program, and also the knowledge component. So this grade in particular, if you remember K from last year, they had high growth, and then they rolled into 1. Mostly the students we had from K to 1. So I'm glad to see that carried over. So I think the high dosage tutoring could be one of the main factors And that is part of the research of the grant, is they're looking at just that, how impactful was the high dosage tutoring, which I know the governor had slated to be happening next year as well. And so I look forward to having the opportunity to participate.
Thank you. The data, the composite scores, those come right off the system, the Dibble system, correct? That's not something you figure?
No, in the past, we had the more rudimentary version that did require, it was an elevated spreadsheet, really, but did require some math, so we took that human element out. Nevertheless, when teachers are assessing a student, there is some entry along the way, an assessment of the student in front of them. And so that's what we worked on at the start of this year with our reading specialists serving as coach to help our teachers understand how to do it, to calibrate, and we'll do that again this coming year. I did maybe want to gauge the committee's interest in Dibbles now is able to extend through grade 8. And so I didn't know if that would be of interest to you to see consistent growth over time. It's still, it's not a complete picture of the students' rating, but if we're trying to track a cohort of students, to have that consistent thread, I think might be useful in addition to other layers that we might want to look at.
And my final question is, you spoke about students that are not passing the access exam, but they are passing MCAS and receiving credits. Do they graduate if they do not pass that access test?
They do.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And at some point, some students opt out of our services, English Learner Supports, which is their right to do so and their family's right. They don't need to access the services. The only requirement from the state is that they do participate in the access exam. So some students, if they've been in the program for a long time, feel as though they might not need it any longer, so we might not have an interaction with them on that level until the day of the assessment.
Member Keegan.
I just have 2 questions. The first one that I noticed was in pre-K, there are 9 L students. And my question is, are we giving L services to our preschoolers? And do we have somebody over at Branch Street that's doing that?
No, and we don't need to be doing that. And in fact, those students who are identified as English learners, it doesn't carry over to K. We have to re-screen. And so we're in the process of doing that now. And so there's been some changes to screening over the years, one of which is it was a pilot, and now it's come to fruition, an alt screener, which we didn't have before. And we had been in some situations where students may be coming to us without recent documentation or any, but it's very clear that the student may have some barriers to participating in the screener, and it becomes a little foggy as to whether we take a chance and try to administer the screener. Do we really trust the results? And what this alt does is, we believe, it's our first go around with it as the state just recently released it, we believe we may have more duly identified students because we are able to perchance, or in theory, more accurately gauge their English learning, English proficiency, as well as their needs in terms of special education. So that's a hunch that we have, but we have no data on that yet. So we've been training our testers in that, and our ELE supervisors have convened with the FRC and our Branch Street administrator to also support that.
Great, thank you. And my second question is, I'm going to start with a statement that when you look at the kindergarten numbers, it's striking that 47% of kindergartners come to us not at grade level. And by the end of the year, we're down to 31% are still well below, and 13 still below. So that's still 44% of our kids, almost 50% of our kids are going into first grade below grade level, but it's because they came to us below grade level. And so my question is, have you considered perhaps putting in a grade between kindergarten and first grade When I was young, it was called readiness, and it was for those kids who weren't at grade level. They went into readiness to get them ready for first grade. And instead of staying back per se, it's an extra grade in there. And then they would proceed to first grade after that. And given the numbers that we have, if you took one grade 1 teacher in every single building next year and you'd have a full class in each building. And we could possibly help these kids in a more productive way to get that high dosage sort of reading focus. It's just a thought.
Thank you. Yeah, I would be concerned about grouping the students homogenously that way, because they certainly are at an age where developmentally they're learning from peers, and listening and speaking does interact with all the literacy skills that we're learning. I am encouraged to see that the grade 1 data is so strong, showing that I think those students might need just a little bit more time with the foundational skills, and over time we should see that red shrinking. But you are correct. That's a theme that we've been hearing from teachers and administrators alike, is that sometimes students who are joining us in kindergarten aren't used to being in a setting structured such as our school day is. So there is some time in terms of readiness that is spent learning the routines. But the classrooms I've been in have been absolutely outstanding in terms of using their class time efficiently, moving throughout the room. Students know what's expected so that they can really focus on the learning. And this is a place too where we do have students in our Excel program. I believe our Excel class, kindergarten class this year was above 22 students. And the goal is to mainstream the students. So throughout the year, we will partially mainstream students. They will begin taking our assessments as well. And so that's really important that we not exclude our English learners from our literacy assessments as well. And so they're incorporated in our figures too.
All set. I just have a few questions, if you don't mind, Madam Superintendent. So I'm looking at the data, and it's all, in my mind, positive from a at or above grade level. So I look at it, those combined. And I'm seeing the trend from 56 up to, even first grade, 68%, second grade, 63, grade 3, 60. But I'm looking at fourth grade. And I'm not sure if, I didn't see what third grade was last year, by the way. I'm coming in as a first time. So what I would be looking at is, where did third grade last year meet in fourth grade's expectation this year? Because I'm assuming majority of those students are going up the grade level, of course. We started the year off at 56% and ended the year at 56%. I look at that other number of 44%. That didn't chip away at all, which is the well below and below number. We didn't chip away at all at that. So I'm seeing at the other grade levels, we're chipping away at those numbers, but from start to finish, it didn't go anywhere. Is there a reason for fourth grade? Is there a scenario or situation in fourth grade? New students, a larger population of different schools added into it? I'm just concerned that we didn't meet any progress in fourth grade, and they're going to fifth grade now, and we're not tracking that unless we agree to go through that 5th through 8th scenario. I like what I'm seeing from K through 3. So what was the scenario in fourth grade is there any scenario, or is there a reason why we didn't chip away at it?
Sure. So I think there's a couple factors that come into play there. So the first being that although the numbers didn't change, the students progressed from what was expected of them at the beginning of the year to the end of the year, because we're changing the game in terms of the month and the span of time. I think that we're looking at students who have spent K through 3 in reading program that we weren't fully sold on, that took a lot of work on the teacher's end to manipulate, to make it into something workable and usable. And then we implemented foundations to implement some of the science of reading, but still we weren't fully on board with where we needed to be. And so now in grade 4, unpacking this new curriculum, which also spirals up. So what the students are learning in K1, 2, 3, they'll see some of the topics repeated in more depth as they age. They'll see the routines repeated in more depth as they age. And grade 4 is coming in at the tail end of what this would be sequentially, K4, and are getting a healthy dose of science of reading, high-quality instructional material, but don't have the benefit of having the preceding grades to grow on that way. And also, the expectations change going from 3 and 4 to their integrated ELA block, where the skills and knowledge are integrated within 90 minutes, whereas grades K through 2, they have 120 minutes a day where they're able to focus on literacy. So we're thinking about that. We're also thinking about not just getting out of the ELA realm, looking into our social studies curriculum, science, because again, if we have high-quality instructional materials in all of these subject areas, we should be, I guess, lack of a better word, like cross-pollinating and learning literacy all day and all ways. So there's ways to grow there as well. But like I said before, typically we see it takes a few years to see growth in a new curriculum. These students will be going to grade 5 in a curriculum that we've had for years, which is the EL curriculum, and so I'm confident they'll continue to make gains there as well.
Thank you. Any other questions? Member Bias, second round.
Thank you, Mr. Vice, through you. Just before you begin objective 2, so I have a compound question to that end. The at and above number, so the green and the blue bar, just so I just wanted to be set on the record and clear to everybody at home, since this is a screener of a level of need for support, are the at and above students, are those assessed that they no longer will need support or intervention? Does that translate not needing support or intervention in the next year? And lastly, does the at and above number mean, because you threw out a word proficiency, right? I don't think this benchmark data by itself is what you determine proficiency on. There's a lot of different factors, or...
Yeah, proficiency I use with access, but right, this is one data point in terms of their literacy skills.
Right. So are the at and above students able to read, write, comprehend independently, or are they still going to be needing support / intervention? Is that an individual level? That sort of thing. Just make it clear for everybody at home.
Sure, thank you. So the correspondence is students who fall within the blue, which means above grade level, truly means that those students are beyond where we would expect them to be and can do what's expected of them in that grade level without teacher support. So teachers still have meaningful roles in their lives, but without interaction or additional support from the teacher, they would be right where we need them to be at this point in time and beyond. And I'm really amazed when you dig into that above category. There are students who are far and away beyond where they should be, and that's really very impressive. The students in the at or the green category are students whom, if they enjoyed a typical day of instruction as designed by the curriculum without any additional intervention, probably not even necessarily small group work, although that is a practice that we like to see in our classrooms, that if they went through the regular lesson of what's expected, they too will be at grade level. The students in the yellow, that's an indication to us that they need some extra support in at least one area. And then the students in the red need extra support in more than one area. So it could be that they're doing quite well, or as we would say, proficient in some of those smaller testing areas, and there's just a few areas to focus on. It could be all of them, to be fair. But the yellow indicates that there's a sliver where we need to focus on to move those students into the green and blue.
Thank you. I just wanted it to be known that these numbers aren't a one-size-fit-all, that it could just be one area, not all the areas are in those numbers. So thank you for that clarification.
Thank you. Yeah, we really use this as a roadmap to see where we need to move next with the student.
Yep, Member Willett.
Okay, thank you. I absolutely 100% agree, and I mentioned probably when I first returned back to the school committee of having a longitudinal approach and continuity with Dibbles. So if we are invested of, long-term with the grammar schools association with Dibbles, I'm 100% on board with that. So I'm grateful for that you are exploring that, because then we can study long-term. Because if you transition from one testing model to another, I don't think you're going to be able to get the same data as if you had the continuity, longitudinal study approach. That's just my 2 cents on that, but I thank you on that.
On to objective 2. Thank you, Madam Superintendent.
Thank you. Objective 2 is to reduce opportunity and achievement gaps between student groups to ultimately improve outcomes. So I'd like to give you an update on our Accelerating Achievement Initiative, fill you in on a suite of grounding documents that we've been working on, give you some updates on Cascades and the MTSS revisioning team. Our Accelerating Achievement Initiative, if you recall, that would be the program that the Tenney, the Timoney, and the high school are a part of. I explained, I believe it was last quarterly, that this group is a new group formed by DESE. As part of our membership within this Accelerating Achievement Initiative, we have a liaison who's provided to us. Michelle Ryan is our liaison for the district and for these specific schools. We're really looking at teaching and learning as a part of this initiative, and I'm excited about that. Ms. Ryan was a big part of Kaleidoscope that put out a lot of the documents that we have been using, which I'll speak to in a bit. But we're thinking about calibrating teaching and learning, using our efforts, or putting our efforts into practices that we know to be very worthwhile, providing our students with rigor, having the learning focus on them driving the instruction. And it also qualifies us, we believe, although it's a brand new initiative, to be eligible for grant funding and other supports through DESE. So at this stage, Methuen High School, Tenney, Timoney, and myself, we attended a virtual convening to learn more about what this program really is. And at this stage, we're in an information gathering stage, and so is the department, in terms of all the schools and district completing a self-assessment where we identify what it is we think we need extra support in. Our liaison, Ms. Ryan, will examine our responses. Statewide, the department will look at the responses of all participating schools and districts to decide and to identify if there are trends that they would be able to help us with, whether it be professional development or staffing. I think really anything's on the table at this point. And so Ms. Ryan's actually coming to the district on Friday. We invited her, it wasn't mandatory, but we invited her to come meet with the principals, take a tour of the schools. She seems great to work with, so we look forward to that. And we'll also be partnered with other districts who have similar goals throughout the year. So we'll be moving with a cohort. So there is not an exit date or time or end of the partnership. It could be for all time. It could be for 5 years. We look forward to that as well. And the suite of grounding documents, I need to come up with a catchier name for that. But in the last couple of years, it's been apparent that we need to calibrate our expectations and be really efficient in communicating those across the district, and also to support teachers and administrators who are sometimes spending time creating their own things or items when really that time could be centered on instruction. So some of these documents were the projects I didn't want to lose sight of moving into the acting role. And so Christine Dumont, John Crocker, Meredith Moore have been really excellent project managers in making sure these haven't fallen off our radar. We've been moving through these documents at leadership convenings. So you will see in real life the versions of all these documents in our June meeting, but we have been piloting some of these behind the scenes. We have been convening in leadership teams to see if it's really what we're trying to do. And then we will unveil these to the staff at new teacher orientation and in the fall as our guiding documents. And if over time, over the next year, if we find that something isn't quite right, we'll change it. But you can expect in this branding of documents, we'll have our vision of the graduate, which will be presented to you for approval at our next meeting, as will our district curriculum accommodation plan, common lesson components we had last year. What we have created is a walkthrough tool that is consistent across all schools. We have been piloting it to see if it works or doesn't work. We have a digital form and a paper form so that when walkthroughs, which are not formal evaluations, but it's a team of administrators and sometimes teachers just going through classrooms and seeing what we see in terms of students learning, teachers teaching, materials. We really want to shrink the tool. My goal is for next year for us to be able to go into any classroom in any school and ask the teacher what's really important and integral to teaching and learning in Methuen Public Schools. What are we working on? And I want that response to be consistent from every classroom. Here are the 4 things that we're really focused on, knowing that everything is important. And so the tool that we've created allows for, at the conclusion of the walkthrough tool, data to be entered to go through a district-wide map. So we'll be able to see trends district-wide and by school and focus that way. Curriculum mapping templates and expectations. This was one of our identified areas for improvement from NEASC, that we have curriculum maps, and then we generally have the same components, but it's really important that we have everything mapped out similarly across all disciplines and schools. So we've been working toward that. We also have been working on our year-long professional development session calendar. So the idea is that when teachers sit down to talk about their educator plans with their supervisor in the fall, they at that point will be selecting also their professional development opportunities from our in-district offerings. And so they'll know exactly where they're going over the course of the year, which sessions are eligible for which PDPs, which might help with recertification, but we'll have a really transparent plan for that. We also developed a 6-year cycle for curriculum revision and review so that, first of all, so that we can budget for it. So we're anticipating what teachers will need in terms of whether it's a quick look at a curriculum for a refresh, an overhaul, a piloting. We have that mapped out for the next 6 years. The MPS assessment calendar will be up for next year. And then finally, our TSS procedures and expectations, which will be the product of our revisioning team, which is the team of 40-plus staff members who've been working really hard on that all year. We've passed the theoretical, now we're into the practical. How is this happening? And so that'll be a focus of a lot of the leadership time this summer, and then the rollout in the fall. Also wanted to share our spring mental health screening overview. So again, we had a strong participation rate of 86% in grades 5 through 12, which is about where we're at typically in spring administration. We had strong gains across all outcomes and historically low prevalence of post-traumatic stress and anxiety, and consistently high reports of no concern. And so here's some graphs that are a bit busy in terms of the number of bars, but interesting to see the trends over time, where severe anxiety is at the lowest rate since 15-16. Severe and moderate anxiety are declining. For 9 through 12, depression, general trends are stable across all outcomes at this point. This is what I referred to earlier with 9 through 12, post-traumatic stress prevalence. The lowest rates of severe and moderate outcomes on record. So the cluster to the left shows severe, the cluster in the middle is moderate, and the cluster to the right is no concern. And then 5 through 8, anxiety prevalence. Growth across all outcomes. There's strong gains in reports of moderate and no concern, and successful and sustained implementation of new measures in grades 5 through 8. And our depression prevalence in grades 5 through 8. Again, consistent across all outcomes, strong growth, and successful implementation. 5 through 8, post-traumatic stress, the lowest rates of severe and moderate outcomes on record for grades 5 through 8. So this is a lot of data. Previously, I showed you the reading scores. I showed you the access scores. So we have a lot of information about students, which is really worthless if we're not having discussions about this data, what it means, and then acting on it. So that's been a real goal of our district-wide MTSS revisioning team, is finding ways to not reinvent the wheel or gather data that we already have, not to operate in pockets or in isolation, but really to work collectively across maybe what our areas of expertise are to truly understand the student as a whole. And so we've been working on what we call the Cascades platform, which is really most impressive when we're able to walk you through it and give you a demo, which we'd be happy to do. But this is a screenshot where we pulled up a student and we're able to see in real time all the screening scores, and this is for all of our students here, the screening scores across the district. And so we can look at it a number of ways. We can look at trends that way. We can shrink it down by school and see if we're noticing trends by school. We can look at it by grade level, by classroom. So it's an easier way to present the information to you, to better understand it in ourselves. And then we also have sample student profile pages where we're able to see grades, the screening data, tests, any data source we have on a student with certain permissions and restricted access, so it's as appropriate. But when a student is brought up for what we talked about earlier, that tiered support referral, the team is able to look at the student as a whole and notice, and there's a series of charts that I could show you, where was there a steep drop off at some point? What else was happening in that student's life? Is it behavioral? Is it something personal? Is it truly related to academics? Was there a teacher in particular that had success with the student? If so, why? Can we replicate that elsewhere? And so when we have a teacher who wishes to bring up a student for a referral, they do so right within the system where the data is already housed. So with this simple page here, the teacher is able to say, here's the student, here's why I'd like to refer them, please see X, Y, and Z areas of data, and I'm suspecting the area of concern lies in one of these tiers. They also are able to upload additional data sources if they have other examples. What will happen next is that the TSS team will review the entry, they will meet, they will bring the teacher, they will bring the counselor, they'll talk through where they think the concern is. There'll be there's a drop down of interventions that might be appropriate, and then on the spot that intervention is assigned to an interventionist with an end date, and it lies in their queue. So there's complete clarity in terms of who is responsible for helping the student make gains in this area, progress monitoring, and moving forward that way. And I will say that Mr. Crocker's been traveling to all the schools this week doing faux meetings and convening the team and practicing as if they were doing a meeting, pulling up a student, So I've been getting emails all week because they've been assigning me as interventionist in different ways. But it is really neat to see that pop up in your email box and to know that you're the one that's responsible to schedule your time that way. And then we will end with the sample referral review page where we're able to see all the referrals that were made for a student over time. So that's something we've talked about all the time in this district is historical data. And there sometimes is a lag time in terms of conveying what happened last school year to share with the teacher the next school year. And so that will all live in the system so we can pull up and see, well, we've already tried these 2 or 3 interventions with no progress made, we need to look elsewhere, or we can see over time when there was an area of growth that we might want to replicate. So we're very excited about that. I had a meeting with the team that put together this platform, and we're one of their first customers. And we were talking most recently about how to use this system to help with our strategy plan for the district and schools. So it can work 2 ways. We can input the plan and then have that feed our interventions, or we can have this data on the bird's eye view loaded in, and then it will spit out exactly where we should be focused as a district in terms of what we value in our gains and actionable steps to get there. So possibilities are endless. We're happy to have it built and to have the staff on board, and we really hope to see some gains, or at least increased efficiency as a result. That's a conclusion of Objective 2, if there are questions.
Any questions? Seeing none.
Okay.
Objective number 3.
Okay, number 3, to enhance partnerships with students and families. Again, many of these actions you've heard about. Nothing really should be very new at this point, the end of year 2. Tonight I'd like to highlight an expansion of our early college program, working with Northern Essex Community College, talking about our collaborative problem-solving expansion and plans, our Horizon Camp for year 2, upcoming student activities for grades 8 and 12, and the Parent University. So first, with our early college, we have completed our first year of early college designation with University of Massachusetts Lowell. It doesn't mean that it's the first year we've had early college, but it's the first year we've have the official designation, which is also important because it comes with grant funding and makes the program completely free to our students. So we have enjoyed that. Over the summer, some of our students who participate in our early college with the UML will have the opportunity to participate in the Uprise Summer Program. And this is a three-week program. For the first 2 weeks, students live in the residential setting at UMass Lowell. They take courses, they learn about how to be agents of social change. The third week is done virtually. And at the conclusion of this intensive program, they earn 3 college credits as they would for any other course. So part of the initiative of early college is not only to amass credits as you move through, but also to take a dip in the college experience, live on campus, see what it's like to eat in the dining hall, which they love, move throughout the buildings with a little bit more freedom, so that the idea of pursuing a post-secondary degree doesn't seem so far off, and it actually feels quite attainable to students for whom that might be a new idea. Also, I recently met with the team at Northern Essex Community College. Involved in that was Martha Tatro, our counseling department chair, as well as Mr. Corrett. And so we have plans and have identified meeting times over the course of the summer where we're going to think about potential offerings for the spring of 26-27, and also get some of those articulation agreements underway for our CTE programming. I would like to lean into the CTE area. I think they would as well, because there's room to provide some of that coursework to students in our vocational programming, while also helping them earn micro-credentials and then amass those credits as well. So what we have learned is, while the initial early college designation is a lengthy application process, that it really is quite involved with a couple of parts, the state has tried to reduce the barriers for being designated as early college, and it's actually a lot easier to expand your early college identification if you already have a designation. So we are an add-on, seeing as we already have the UML partnership, so we don't need to go through that application process that would typically begin this month. Instead, it's a much a quicker phase to be added in there. So some of the discussion we had at that meeting regarded changes that would benefit us in terms of the daily high school schedule. As of now, we only have that one flex block at the end of the day, but if we're talking about students traveling to the Haverhill Lawrence campus, when is it best for us to have that time allocated during the school day? How can they accommodate us? So they've been great to work with, and we look forward to that. Next, our collaborative problem-solving expansion. So as you know, we've been working with Think Kids from MGH for years, talking about collaborative problem-solving. It's always had a presence in our district, I'd say, over the past maybe 10 or so years. But what we're interested in doing now is really expanding our awareness of it and our certification program. So by the fall, we should have in-house a full complement of trainers and coaches. So we would no longer need to contract with MGH, which can be costly to have an outside provider to come in, because we've used the train the trainer model and grant funding to do so. This summer, in late August, we have offered stipend to MPS educators who wish to attend this advanced training. So we are expecting 50 participants to come in the summer for the CPS training. And also the MTSS revisioning team is developing the assessment that will drive the referrals for students needing a deliberate instance of collaborative problem solving. So we've been working on that data collection as well. And so we're really very excited about this. Our trainers and coaches are also responsible for building out those PD sessions for the remainder of the school year, so that we have a better sense of who has been exposed to this type of training and who we need to train up. So in that 50-plus member training in late August, I took a look at the list today with Mr. Crocker. There's administrators, program assistants, teachers. It's really nice that everyone will have a hand in it. Finally, our Horizon program is back for year 2. This was very successful last year and comes to us through particular grant funding that matches this need specifically. And it's for newcomer, homeless students, English learner students who fit within the criteria. And what we did last year was we looked at students who are in the upper school, so grades 6, 7, and 8 primarily, and those that were rising grade 9 students. And we really wanted to have students have a sense of opportunities available to them and their families, the pathways available to them as well. And so we created a camp at the last week of school. So we're doing that again, run with our teachers and counselors. And so our students will participate in extracurriculars, STEM activities. They do some brief field trips. They'll get their meals and transportation paid for. And the staff that worked in this last year said, there were some staff members who've worked here for 25 years and said that was the best experience. Just to have this opportunity to engage with students on this level has been excellent. So we've posted for that and had an abundance of interest, and so that will be coming up the end of June. Just wanted to highlight for you in this objective on belonging, our grade 8 and 12 student activities that are yet to take place that we'll be heading into. Sue in my office has also been working on compiling a list of all the events that you might like to attend. Through the end of the school year, there's a ton of student showcases coming up. And so I've asked the principals to take a look to make sure that I have a comprehensive list. We have honors, senior honors and awards night tomorrow evening in the auditorium. So we would love to see you there as well. Next week, we have the adult learning graduation, which is another highlight as well. So a lot of celebrations coming up. And I think it's over at this point, but it happened about half an hour ago. Our live parent university event on bullying and power differential. So we had sent that out to our families. Last I checked, we had about 50 people who had signed up to attend. And that completes the quarterly.
Any questions? Member Bias?
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair, through you. I just have 3 quick things. One, congratulations on the designation. I think that that's very important in terms of grant funding, so kudos. The second thing is regarding the, I believe it was called Uprise Summer Opportunity. I think that's awesome and great. I know I had an opportunity to have a college experience over the summer, staying on campus. And as a first-generation college student, I know that that made all the difference in understanding how college worked, the dynamics, being able to stay on campus. So I think those 2 things are amazing. Also wanted to just highlight an event. Play Ball Foundation came to the high school, and we were able to celebrate the partnership. So that was great and amazing. And finally, for all of these events at the end of the year, these celebrations, award nights, could we get like an email? I know that we were supposed to get kind of a newsletter, but with all the things going on, just to make sure that we know when things are.
Yes, that's what Sue's working on for you now.
Thank you very much.
Member Soroyce, sorry. I want to call you McCarthy still, so.
The early college, the UMass Lowell, do we have other schools that the students are involved in for early college?
No, our formal partnership is with UMass Lowell, and then we're building in our partnership with Northern Essex Community College.
Okay, thank you. And then one other question, well, actually a statement. I finally had a chance to go on and look at the Parent University website. That's a fantastic website. I hope parents go on there, and there's so much information. I thought it was fabulous. The only question I have, though, is I signed up, not realizing we had a meeting tonight. I signed up, but I didn't get an email with the link, so I'm just not sure how that works.
I believe you should have. I can follow up with John Crocker.
All right, I'll double check and see, but I didn't see one. I looked again today, and I didn't see one. Thank you.
Check your spam. But one of those 50 signups were clearly someone that did not attend, so I'll name you. I do have a few questions. So the early college program, do we know how many students total have gone in this year? If not,
Well, we had a cohort of students who were already part of our informal
yeah.
early college experience, and then we were on track to add, I believe we're trying to add 75 per class.
Yep.
And so we work on recruiting the sophomores, so it's the rising juniors. The juniors begin the program, and we do ask that they understand that it's a pathway. I did attend the early college night a few months ago, where there's a representative from UMass Lowell here talking with parents. And there were questions about, although we do have titles for each of our pathways, they're all gen ed requirements. So if a student midway feels as though they want to switch from engineering through to teaching, that's totally fine, because what they're doing is acquiring electives as well that could be used toward any degree moving forward. So the hope was that I believe it was capped at 75 for students moving in to the next cohort.
For future presentation, I would love to see how many of our graduating seniors walk away with credits and what that total comes to.
I'll include that in June. There's a few highlights of some of our graduating students that I would like to share. I don't want to spoil, but I know there's a couple students we have one in particular comes to mind who I know was admitted to, I believe it was 6 Ivy League universities. And just, there's some students that deserve some recognition, especially students who have gained credits or credit-bearing opportunities through AP exams and early college. I'd love to share that with you in June.
Please. And then on to the upcoming grade 8 and 12 student activities. Yes, please, I would love to attend as many as possible this year for the whole district. But I understand Methuen has in the past moved away from the 8th grade trip. And I know a few years ago it was brought up a few times, and I know there is a funding perspective to it. And I think, remember Donovan, you were probably the principal when we stopped doing it at the Tenney, correct? And that was probably what, 2011, 12? So it's been about 10 years roughly, if not a little bit longer, that we haven't explored that. And I know there are a lot of great programs, economically affordable, through EF education, through student adventures. I would love to bring something like that back, and more or less as a perk to the students, something that they can grow into. And if it is a grant-funded thing or something that we can make it affordable through fundraising, PTO raising, even the leftover money in the clubs that I see that total $63,000 in some of the schools, could we move some of that funding to those type of trips, or the way we did it 10, 15 years ago? Because I think that experience fundamentally helped me want to get into this that we're doing tonight. I mean, I know the mayor and I did our Gettysburg trip right after 9/11. Literally the year after was our 8th grade trip in '02. And that was very much an emotional trip for us that, I don't know about you, but definitely left a mark on me. It doesn't have to be Washington. It doesn't have to be Gettysburg or Williamsburg. It could be up in Maine at Bar Harbor, looking at, fishery and science. They have a huge compound where the boat left that found the Titanic, the same boat that went and got the submersible recently. There are all types of different programs that could cater to our students. And so I would love to explore maybe a pilot program in the next year or two on bringing something similar back. If our kids that are in the senior years are going off to New York for a day, I understand we don't want to do senior trips so far out, but we do take on exchange students that are high school level in other countries. Maybe we create a program that might do an exchange program overseas with our seniors too. Again, more as a perk. You have to obtain it or be able to get it. Affording it is different. We would need to look into raising money, but it's a perk to certain students, a goal to get to. So I would love to spearhead that and work with the committee on discussing that with you. And the last one is also kind of pivoting from the early college program, is could we partner potentially with UMass Lowell or even Northern Essex for our teachers to get their credits plus, as well as a perk?
Well, there's a few different ways to look at that. So we can certainly establish partnerships. We've been working with Bay Path University right now, most recently speaking about program assistants or other staff members in the district who are seeking an eventual licensure as a teacher and need the undergraduate degree to be completed and then supported in passing the MTEL exams. And so that's been the opportunity we've been hunting with most enthusiasm, because it's free to the district. except that we would need to provide a small stipend for the mentoring teacher, and will most likely be free, or I believe, yeah, entirely free to our staff members, because Bay Path has acquired the grant funding to do that. So that seems the most reasonable. We've also explored partnerships with Merrimack and Northern Essex and UMass Lowell to do something similar. Most recently, I'd reached out to Merrimack to see if they would be so kind as maybe to appoint one of their professors or instructors our way to support our staff members who are having difficulty passing certain aspects of the exam. But to be quite frank, we have paused some of that work due to the budget cycle that we're in. And hopefully we'll be able to go back to those conversations soon, but the Bay Path is one that will continue.
Thank you. Any other questions? If not, we'll move on to the next topic, and I will yield to the mayor.
Next on the agenda, we have the fiscal year 27 budget update. I'll invite the acting superintendent to share any updates with the committee.
Thank you. So there should be a memo in your packets. I should have presented that on the screen as well. I'll do that after I finish talking for the folks at home would like to see, but it's also linked online in our agenda. So I know that you have been attending or viewing the recent city council workshops, or first and second read of the budget. It's been a while since we've convened to talk about the budget, and I believe last time we spoke in this setting, it was prior to me having the opportunity to share with you how we actually arrived at the original allocation of 114 million. So we had settled on the near 118, and then with the understanding that we would need to work down to 114 going into the city council. We are very appreciative of the ability to back out our FY 26 and 27 out of district tuitions for our students who are aging out, as well as the FY 27 transportation for those students, viewing them as one-time costs, and the $250,000 for unemployment, and certainly the other funding that was discovered on the city side to provide some relief to the schools. So what I provided for you is a list of the positions that were in fact on the list of reductions to get down to the 114 number. And so you'll see that I've indicated which are vacant, and they're at the bottom part of your list, in which positions, the positions that are not indicated as vacant do have a staff member in them. And then you'll see at the top that there's a series of positions that have been struck from the list, and that's because we're able to remove them from the reduction list based on those one-time costs and the allocation for unemployment and other funding from the city. We're able to save or reinstate without formally reducing the upper school band teachers, K-4 STEM, reading specialists, some of our grammar school counselors who had been on the list, custodians, fine arts supervisor, ELE supervisor, our in-school suspension supervisor, and a social studies teacher at the high school. As we are moving through the list, I know it's of interest to all of us as to how many people we're talking about eliminating. And I will say that we've had some movement within the district where there were some open positions, where we've seen some shifting taking place between grade bands, whether it's upper school to high school, lower school to upper school. So that's really helped create some spaces that would preserve a spot from another MPS employee. So that has been useful. What we're doing tomorrow is the district team has invited each grammar school principal to come individually for a segment of time because we're really looking at grades 7 and 8 first because of licensure. So in grades 7 and 8, teachers really need to have a certification that matches primarily their area in which they're teaching. We need to look at the reductions there and make sure that we have the adequate licensure in each of those grades, despite the reductions in the grade levels. And from there, we're more apt to find teachers who may have high school licensure or a generalist or a K through 6 licensure. So we're starting there because we feel as though if we can figure out the licensure and where our teaming at 7 and 8 fit, that the other pieces will fall more easily, although there will be some complicated situations in terms of bumping in roles in departments and schools. We met with Kara Blatt today to talk through that as well, and we'll continue to do that. I believe we have another meeting with she and Sue on Friday. And we're working on our assignment letters for program assistants at the moment because they have the soonest deadline of June 1st. So to date, our program assistants will be, our existing program assistants who are MPS hired will be getting assignment letters that have their current role stated, or a placement stated on the letter, because the positions that we've eliminated for program assistants or reduced at this point are currently vacant. So if funding does come to us, as we anticipate it will, and we're able to add those positions back in, the complication there is that program assistants who have received their assignment might then have the opportunity or desire to apply for a different position or a new position, and that will create a new chain. But to date, we're going to work that way. And we're working through the high school assignment letters as well. It's a little simpler by department. And so the grammar schools is where it does get a little bit complicated in terms of licensure and where we expect teachers to fall. But we are having conversations about that. Mr. Goslin, did you want to chime in about the budget at all? Did I miss anything?
No, I did talk to the mayor on Friday when he gave me the good news about pretty much being able to back out about $2 million for unemployment as well as tuitions. So I did back that out, as well as he increased the number to city council by $300,000. So we pretty much gained $2.3 million in services. That's all gone back in as positions. I think we're in a pretty good place if the state comes in where they did last year. I'm not expecting them to, if they come in where they were last year, we're gonna be about $1 million more than I thought we were gonna be. So I think with the city helping us out, I think we're gonna end up, it's still gonna be a tough year, it'll be lean times, but I think we'll be in a much better place.
Any questions or comments from the committee? Member Royce?
I just wanted to ask, I'm assuming this isn't how the list is going to go for you to, right? I just want to make that clear when people see this, if anyone sees this list, that I'm assuming you're not going down the list to bring people back.
Yes, thank you. No particular order. I just tried to group the vacancies together, was really it. And I have been getting some questions as to why there's more grammar school teachers on the list than high school teachers. And it's certainly not an indication of priority, but actually in reality, the high school over time has had positions reduced that have never been reintroduced, whereas when we have found additional funds in the past, we've been going back to the grammar schools, to those classroom teachers. So we're pretty thin at the high school. And the vacancies that are listed are not unnecessary. They're existing positions, many of which are critical to providing services for students, and some happen to be positions where we had a recently retiring teacher who will be ending at the end of the year, and so that has created a vacancy, not that the need isn't there.
Member Willett?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to emphasize once again to the state senator for his work on the Hill, because it was an additional Chapter 70 allocation above the House. I want to also thank the mayor in conjunction with the city council for the free cash that's going to become available to us to shore up the budget. Unfortunately, I do have to emphasize again, as a general criticism, is that the millionaire's tax is not doing what it was intended to accomplish for our schools. And unfortunately, we are experiencing a massive surplus with the millionaire's tax, estimated to be in the amount of $800 million. And that should go partially to our school systems to bolster services, to recall people, to negate any hardships locally. I'm not understanding where the surplus with the general stabilization fund at the state level is flourishing. The millionaire's tax is flourishing. It's exceeding expectations. Even Max Page, the president of the Massachusetts Teachers Association, I know there was a change of leadership, but at that time, he said $800 million. And we're not even at the end of the year yet. It was about $600 million. They're anticipating $800 million. I think there's a disconnect, unfortunately. And also the Pioneer Institute, and it's been reported that the state government workforce is at the largest level in state history. While we're making massive cutbacks, and we're across the board in neighboring communities across the state, laying off teachers and firefighters and police officers and DPW and frontline workers. And we're expected to anticipate in some communities doing Proposition 2.5 overrides, which is a non-starter in Methuen. We're a gateway community. We're limited with the resources. We're limited with the commercial base. So it's unfortunate. I will continue to applaud the senator, because I think it was a Hail Mary pass again. I want to thank the leadership team, the acting superintendent in conjunction with Ian Goslin, also Maggie and the mayor working with the city council to pass the budget. At least we have some certainty. But I think in the grander scheme of things, I think there continues to be a disconnect on two fronts. Again, the size of the state workers' workforce, and there's not a sense of sacrifice. And also the intention originally of the millionaire's tax disproportionately going to the T, where it should be going to public education. And I don't know what the solution is, because if you have Max Page and nearly 200,000 members and their families and their neighbors and their supporters and elected officials at local levels collectively crying about it, I'm not understanding what the disconnect is. But it's a crying shame where we cannot have something where we have casinos, the millionaire's tax, DraftKings, all these tools, and they're not being applied locally. And again, it's out of no disrespect to the legislative delegation. It's an ongoing dialogue, and I'm concerned about it. Thank you.
Member Byers?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. I know we're going to talk about reform measures later on in this agenda, so I'll leave that be. I just have a question and a concern on this list, and it's the parent liaison in the march. I was just wondering if there was anything that we could do to save that position. I know, and I say that not prioritizing just any one position, but understanding how critical and low in terms of relativity, the budgeted amount. So that's a grave concern to me, to see if there's anything that we can do there, knowing that each and every position that's on this list is of critical value to the district.
Thank you. And I think to calm some of the anxious feelings among staff who may wonder if they're on this list. We do expect that many of these positions will be able to be reinstated, and that they're on there temporarily or for the time being. We hope to recall as many as possible. I would agree that it's an important role. But yeah, the roles on this document, they came at, I guess, a loss and difficulty for the building and central leadership team to put people on there, or roles on there. But that would certainly be our hope, that we're able to reinstate.
Thank you. And my last point is to thank the leadership team and the mayor, because I do believe that the mayor is doing the best that he can at this moment in time. So I really do believe that and appreciate that.
Thank you, Member Byers. Vice Chair?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I do want to thank the team for getting to where we are today. We're not done. We all agree with that this is not over. Once we get, hopefully, that state money, we'll be able to understand where the boat's sailing. But here's the thing. I got wind of something that happened in one of our grammar schools where someone created a stir. I need everyone to understand that this budget is not done until July 1st. And for certain people in our school district to continue to create hysteria and give their own narrative, especially when he or she is on their way out, should not be something that is acceptable. And I'm sorry, the hysteria that was created, again, over the last few years, with teachers being pulled into rooms and saying, oh, you're probably going to be pink slipped, and oh, you're on the shopping block, before a list is even provided or the final names are provided, is just unacceptable. And so I say to the union, and I say to you guys, I'm only taking the word from you, and I would hope that our teachers and administrators would as well, that it comes from your office and the union representation, not from any of the building folks. And I'm not sure if anyone else got any wind of that or calls, but I'm not going to get too much into detail. But it needs to come directly from you, Madam Superintendent.
Yes, it absolutely will. We did communicate with the principals that there are some roles that are singleton and identifiable here, and we didn't think that in good faith it would be kind of us to have the person discover that if by perchance we're mentioning it at City Council. So if it has been communicated, and I did send an email to the staff as well, but if it has been communicated that your particular role is on the reduction list, or for instance, a role within your teaching team or grade level, you really can't make assumptions about whom it will be, because we have a better sense of the interworkings of the entire district, the needs in the district, the licensure, and there are some really wild paths that one reduction could take that could impact many people. And so just to even try to draw that conclusion, I think would just do more harm than good, as you had said. So we're being very careful in terms of our names that will go on our list, in terms of the letters that we're obligated to give out, and are working closely with the union to make sure that we're of the same mind in terms of following that protocol.
And I'm surprised it's still on the list. Clubs and activities across the board? Those were stipends, I'm assuming, correct?
Those are stipends, and they're on the list because it's a savings that wouldn't necessarily require us to give another RIF notice to someone. So those are very important to us, but it was a way for us to get down to the allocation without impacting a person's full-time role. So I believe, Mr. Goslin, offhand, in my mind, 52,000 is coming to mind.
The lower schools.
For the lower school.
52,000 for high school is 70. So combined, $122,000.
Where's the upper school and all that?
What's that?
Where's the upper school and all that? You said lower school?
That's the grammars.
Grammar
Grammar
schools.
schools.
Grammar schools is 13 per building.
Okay.
High school, 70.
And that was to cover a position. So more than likely, that's next on the list to come back?
Definitely, if not completely, at least, make sure that we get everything we absolutely need.
Okay.
Like, there are certain things at the high school that have to happen, class advisors, things like that. There might be some things that don't get used.
But a lot of these clubs are self-sufficient, aren't they? Aren't they like running on their
They're not
own?
pay for play. This is student council, things like that.
That we can't get rid of? Isn't student council, is like, you have to have student leadership. So I hate to say it, does that not fall on like an associate principal at that point?
I think once everything comes back in and
I'm
we
not-
know
yeah,
where
we can go
everything
from there,
flushes
yeah.
out,
Yeah.
we'll figure out how to tackle that. If we need to, maybe it goes right back in, but we'll need to see how much money we have. I mean, do we need a math teacher? Do we need student council? It's a tough decision to make.
know, ask the
Neither one
great-
of them is a good one.
That's the Great Alliance Tech. They just added another one.
I think it's safe to assume for the students who are out there who really love and enjoy these activities or are interested in building their experiences, they should be assuming, and I think the staff should too, that these structures will be in place next year as well until informed otherwise. Once we have a better sense of the exact allocation that we'll be getting from the state, then we'll be able to see, are there a few clubs that I can shift into grants or not? But for now, that helps us not disturb another staff member just by having it on the list temporarily, I'll say.
I'm all set. Thank you.
Just one more time, would you please share the one-time cost that the mayor is good enough to recommend for us? Can you hear me?
No.
Can you hear me now? No? Okay. What are we getting for one-time costs from Mayor Beauregard? What's the total?
Unemployment,
Yeah.
unemployment was $250,000 that I was able to back out. Tuition and the transportation for
Are
those
aging out.
students who are aging out was approximately 1.75. So the two of those add up to about $2 million.
Wow.
And then during budget time, they found there's some additional money, and they increased our 13.9 by $300,000. So now it's 14,297, if I remember correctly. 114,297.
I know you meant that, yeah, okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay,
quiz.
going in the right direction, but, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? If not, next. on-
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah, I'm
sorry.
all right.
I know we had this conversation individually, but just for the rest of us, can you take us through the process of handing out pink slips, and so that I know there was concerns last year about, people getting them the middle of the day and then, having to deal with a class afterwards. Is there any possibility, because I know there's implications, but is there any possibility of trying to do those at the end of the day, or, since we have to work with these June 1st, June 15th days?
Yes, well, we'll try to do them at the end of the day and create the least amount of disruption possible. We're also trying to be ahead of those dates, to be fair to staff members. And so we're working, trying to work quickly but also accurately as we're doing that. But yes, absolutely, I hear your concern.
Thank you very much.
Next on the agenda, we have a discussion regarding the superintendent search. I'll pass it off to Member Donovan.
My intent in asking for this to be on the agenda was we could just get started and decide when we wanted to get started. I'm happy to see the contract is ready to roll, Mr. Goslin, so we could defer any conversation till then.
That's correct. The contract's ready to go. Just need you guys to approve that we can move forward with that, and we will. I will do my best. If you guys can start the search before June 30th, I'll put a good portion of that purchase order on FY '26. prevented the majority of it from going on FY '27. But since the majority of it's going to be done in FY '27, it's definitely going to be a good chunk there.
Okay,
So, but as long as you approve that, we can move forward
Move forward, thank
ASAP.
thank you.
Any other discussion? Vice Chair?
I guess I'll wait for the contract. I'll ask for save it for the contract.
Next on the agenda, we have a discussion on enrollment forecast and potential redistricting / building use. This is a request of Member Donovan and Member Soroyce.
Well, first, I think this has been a topic that has been discussed. Vice Chair DeZoglio has been talking, how many years we talked about this?
Probably 6 to 7.
Brought it up, right? So, in watching the events in our communities all across the country and sharing the misery of what's happening as enrollments drop across the country, and that creates a firestorm of funding issues, I started doing some research, and which I thought I'd share with you. So you all have a copy of the New York Times article about what's going on nationally. You have a copy of a really interesting article from the Massachusetts Budget and Policy Center with some real specific information focusing on gateway cities. And then I pulled a whole bunch of graphics showing our enrollment for the last 10 years. I am no data scientist, but I know I work here with much more people who can analyze a little bit better, but I think it speaks the numbers, which show like a 9% decrease over the last 10 years in our enrollment, a significant decrease in kindergarten enrollment. I think it's time for us to have a formal, strategic, and purposeful approach to figure out what are we going to do. And I'm thinking, we've talked about redistricting, we've talked about best use of space in our buildings, but I do believe, as painful as it may be, it's time to work together to figure out the best ways to address what appears to be a national ongoing issue. The New York Times article called what's been going on, especially this year, the tip of the iceberg in terms of falling student enrollment and everything that comes with it. I look to my colleagues here for some direction. How do we want to do this? Should we be hiring? I believe we should. I think we need an expert to come in and talk to us about, and have them look at our building spaces. Talk about the best way if we do redistrict, if we do reorganize our schools. Right now, we became comprehensive grammar schools for a reason, because to address the inequities in our district and to provide the safest, most up-to-date buildings for our students. It's been, It's been about, 25, 30 years, I think, since the CGS came online. So, and we talked about it ad nauseum in some of our subcommittee meetings. But after doing more research, it seems like we are truly on a path with just almost every other community in Massachusetts, and it's a problem across the country. We are dealing with dropping enrollments for a number of reasons that we don't have to get into here. But what are we going to do about it? So I certainly would want to hear. Mr. Royce, we didn't even realize we were doing this.
No, and
So-
one of the reasons I had asked for it to be put on is because there's a subcommittee for redistricting, and I don't know where that's at. I don't think, with all the budget and everything else going on, that you haven't had a chance to even organize that. But that was the only reason why I put it on there. I was just wondering which way we were going to go. Like you just said, there's different things to look into.
Yeah, I'm not sure who's on the subcommittee, but I would ask that we start moving forward. I mean, we're almost through this budget, I hope. But I think it has to be something that has to be on the radar. And because I don't think things will change. And if you look at the numbers, it's so interesting. If you look at the school by school, grade by grade numbers, it's just so interesting how there are bubbles that we have to follow, bubbles of, large classes. But it tells quite an interesting story about how our numbers are declining. Could all change maybe when we have our next national elections and some policies change? We don't know. But I do think we need some very formal professional guidance on what to do, building-wise, and then if we are going to redistrict, because that's a long process, very emotional process, I think it's probably time. I look to, the vice chair, mayor, and the mayor, like, how can we get this going now? If the body agrees, like, how can we start moving forward?
Mr. Mayor, may I just directly respond to that subcommittee comments really quickly?
Yes.
Thank you. So obviously, I was sworn in late February into March, and recently learned that I am by default, by last name, the chair of the redistricting subcommittee.
Is that true? I didn't know that.
Yeah, I didn't know that until recently.
I didn't know it either.
So there was also some mix up around who was on the redistricting subcommittee, but it is myself, our chair, and the vice chair that is on that redistricting subcommittee. I think so more than happy to do that work in this kind of focus group in terms of the subcommittee, in the hopes that the administration joins us, of course. The first question that I believe that we need to ask ourselves as a body is, do we want this conversation to be a full committee, put on the agenda, have a rolling conversation, which in my own opinion seems to kind of be a little slow, but again important because it's an emotional process, as you just mentioned. Mm-hmm. Or do we want it to be a subcommittee focused discussion at first, bring updates every meeting in terms of how to move forward? I think that's the first question that we have to answer is this a full committee discussion at all times, or do we want to continue with the redistricting subcommittee? And I'm more than happy to get that going and drive that initiative now that I understand that I am the chair of that committee by default.
I just want to add, thank you, Member Bias. I think a few weeks ago, I think I brought it to the attention of the committee that I think this needs to be a full-blown public discussion, so no one can say, oh my God, I never heard about this. And two, we already have quorum, I think, in the aspect of talking about it. And I think your opinion is just as more valued than mine versus Member Baez or Member Donovan's, and that it's not really being vocalized in a subcommittee. So, and Member Keegan, you probably have, again, being a parent and having kids in the district too, I would need, all bodies, I think, here need to be at this table for this discussion as one voice and show both the pros and cons. We have the administration here. We can have principals here. We could have parents here. It's recorded, and it's an open dialogue. I think that's probably the best direction to have this as an ongoing discussion. If we want to have agenda items for the topic itself and put a time limit to where we sit on this topic, sure. Or could it be part of workshops instead of our business meeting? And we could have some side conversations too. That could be a subcommittee-sponsored engagement. But I do think, as a body, we should show the data. We should have the lines on a map shown to us too, and maybe 2 or 3 scenarios going into the 28 school year, where we can potentially transition a grade to one location, transition a grade to 2 locations, whichever it is, and domino affect it. And we also will have a new superintendent, hopefully or established superintendent, by school year 28 as well, which may bring some fact. That could be also part of the criteria too, is someone that's redistricted and realigned schools too. That could be part of our requirement for this person. So I'm one voice here, but one that I think needs to be said to all of us, that we're all part of this and we all need to be at the table. I'll stop there. Thank you.
I just want to emphasize some points. This body itself will never alter the national agenda until there is another election, so why bring it up? The trend lines are exactly what I said. Regardless of your political persuasion, that's where the trend lines are going. I think the fact that we need to have an outside professional firm study what's happening and then make formal recommendations to us. What I would advise this body, similar to what they do with the gerrymandering that had worked in the past but it's not working now, is that it's whatever the package, the final package of recommendations, and we can have the professional firm, we can conduct public hearings, we can do outreach and surveys. Whatever that final package of recommendations would be strictly an up and down vote. What I witnessed when I was part of redistricting was similar to Stalingrad, of trench warfare. People were fighting street by street to be applied to one school versus another. I'm not going to go through that process again. If it's brought to our attention in terms of a racial disparity that needs to be corrected, I'm 100% in favor of correcting that. That's the mission of why we received the funding for the grammar schools to begin with, was to deal with racial disparity, okay? Secondly, it should be a professionally done analysis, and I agree with Member Donovan on that. I think there should be input from the community and hearings and discussions. I'm in favor of that. But the final package of recommendations, to take away from the politics, it should be a formal up and down vote. If we start to dabble in the weeds and engage in trench warfare, it's going to be a rehashing of what happened in the past. You're going to have a dissatisfied portion of the population, okay? And it's going to be street by street of, we're going to have calls, and then we're going to be advocating for realignment of streets to schools. Now, I potentially can envision if we really continue of, right now is a 9% reduction in the last 10 years. If we continue to experience that, one of our grammar schools maybe could be converted into a regional special education center, and we derive some revenue to save jobs. Because if the revenue at the state level suddenly declines, I think we're up a certain creek without a paddle. We have to start exploring revenue-generating opportunities locally, and some type of, regional collaborative might be one of, maybe CGS, if that's a low population center, but I'm not an expert. I can't envision making that final decision without outside experts helping us. So that would be my advice on that. Thank you.
And before I ask the administration what their thoughts are on, because none of us have had that question yet, I think it's time to retire K through 8. The grammar schools, it's time to retire it. We're seeing the declining numbers. You're seeing the schools broken up into 4s. You can easily break the city in half and see where the disparity falls between the two, but you could also see where the cost savings falls. Not less positions, but collaborative positions. Could specials be summoned between 8, 9, 10, 11, 12? Could special ed be partnered, like you just said, a day school? Could we use specialists and or other extracurricular activities? I mean, we already have 7th and 8th graders doing sports with our high schools students. How amazing would that be if we could have 7th and 8th centered in one location with our high schools? Now, I'm not an expert, but I am in the industry of merging and acquisitions. It's very different than a school department, don't get me wrong. But when you look at a population decrease, and a lot of it was because of COVID, and we can say, a lot of kids went to charter or private schools because, schools were shut down and the remote learning, we need to look at when they start coming back, what's the right model? And I don't think the model that we're in right now is working. You might not, but the boom is about to happen. It was the COVID boom, you know? Kids are turning 5, 6 years old now. But where I'm getting at is, I just think the K through 8 model is kind of retired. And I want to yield some of my time to the superintendents here, what their thoughts are on this, and is it time? I mean, both of you have been in this district your whole, most of your career, and/or involved in the district for majority of your life. So, I'll pause.
I'll go first. I think it's worth looking at the idea of redistricting. I do think there's so much research and so many different ways to go about it that I would say that if the idea is that we're going to spend next year, whether it's standing agenda items or special meetings, really discussing and planning in order to have something done for the following school year, whether that's a slow transition or however it looks, who we're grandfathering in, and accounting next year for all the viewpoints of our stakeholders and really being wise about it. I would think it would be best to hit the ground running in the fall. And so if the desire is to bring a consultant on board, which I am behind, I think it's really interesting work. I'd love to spend a lot of time doing it, but I do think that would be a job into itself. I'd love to hear how other people, other districts have done it, what's gone well, and what are things to be aware of. I think that I would encourage you to maybe look to settle on that person and to contract with them as soon as possible, so in the fall we can just begin, rather than spending a few months selecting, and now it's winter, and now we're behind, and now our timeline is set back. So I would like to also take the time to do a little bit more research myself before I weigh in formally on how I feel about a K-8 model. I do see the benefits of K-8. I see the benefits of an upper school in one building. But at the same time, I see the challenges of both as well. And so I don't know if it has to be one or the other or something in between. But I think everything's on the table. And that's why we would maybe need that third party to help guide the conversation, at least keep us moving. Mr. Goslin?
I'll agree with everything Lisa just said. You absolutely need an expert to come in and, because, I mean, what do we know? I mean, we all have our opinions, but we need somebody who's done it before, who knows the pros and cons, knows the cost savings, understands the bus route. Like, somebody who's done it before. You absolutely need an expert to come in, but I just listen to them. I feel like Methuen is really famous for calling in the experts and then saying, you don't know, you know? So I would definitely bring in an expert, but then I would absolutely listen to them. So that's my advice.
Sorry, go ahead.
That's okay. I think it's important to have the committee, though, so that you can come up with several consultants that you're looking at. Like, I think that, I don't think any of this should fall on the administration right now. I think they just have a lot going on. But I think the committee is still important to have, even if we do it as a group at our workshops or on the agenda.
Is this something we need an RFP for? And if so, can we have that done before the end of June so that we can select someone by August?
So that could happen. Here's another thing too. There also needs to be a funding source for that type of service. And free cash is frozen on July 1, and we're gonna have this conversation a little later with what I'm gonna have to ask the city council to take from free cash on the 8th of June. We need to pump the brakes big time on those drawdowns. This is something that, it's not in the budget. We probably wouldn't be able to contract with somebody until sometime in 2027, just given the fact that we don't have a funding source for it.
May I recommend that we still put out an RFP
Yeah.
to kind of get that going.
You're gonna see that it's gonna be a process very similar to the
Superintendent
search.
search.
Where you're gonna ask people to come and say, what can you give us, or what can you provide us? And then you're gonna have to score based on what you want. You know, it's gonna be a process. It's not gonna be done by the end of June by any stretch. But that should be started over the summer and
Yeah.
finished in the fall. So then you can start looking for funding sources and, you know, whatnot.
And additional things, and I agree with you, and I also think we may also have a prime candidate already. Zale was questioned, if you recall, during that conversation, when we had the search, I had brought up, have you done this stuff, this type of operational audits before? And they said yes. So I'm not saying they are the candidate, but I know we're currently contracting with them, and they would be in the know of what we're looking for. I'm not, again, putting my horse before the stall kind of thing, but, you know, what I do want to say is if we can get the RFP kicked off, Mayor, through you and your team, I think we might be able to get some grant funding from the state. I've already itched the ear of our senator and a few of our state reps about some of those ideas that are coming on about redistricting, and there is grant funding that we potentially could tap into mid-year, or at least into the next budget cycle. So for a full anticipated funded source that could come from that. So I'm not sure who we need to go to kick off the RFP, but maybe we'll talk offline.
I'll see if I can reach out to another school system who's done a similar one and see if we can't borrow their boilerplate and then make it our own.
Perfect.
So I'll have someone reach out this week, next week, and see if they can't find some. I feel like North Andover just hired somebody recently, but
And over to, yeah. All right, thank you.
Any other discussion? If not, we'll move on to the discussion on establishing and reviewing emergency protocols. This is a request from member Willett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So obviously, as was highlighted in the public participation letter, we had an incident at Timony School. I think it's equivalent to what happened with the boiler situation in the dead of winter at the Marsh School. I think we need to establish some type of protocol, and it would probably involve maybe the mayor's office and also emergency management and maybe the outside nurse, is if we have a situation, and again, mechanical items will happen, but if we have a situation similar to what occurred at the Timony during a heat wave, 90-plus degrees, where I received reports of kids either fainting or had to be rushed to the nurse's office with ice packs, and it was similar to a triage situation. I think we need to at least some type of protocol establish in terms of saying what happened with the marsh. Commonsensically, we shut down for a day. We got a special dispensation from the state, and we said, okay, one day or whatever. If we had an emergency situation like that, if we are sequestering the kids and not doing academics that day, I think that was the most paramount concern I had, was the safety of the kids. I think there was some type of breakdown at that school, and I can't pinpoint it. I'd like to have definitely a follow-up report of how many kids went to the nurse's office, and if the teachers want to voluntarily, confidentially send me reports, I'll take that. But I think there has to be some type of protocol, some type of level of common sense, that when you have a heat wave, I'm not talking about a 60, 70-degree day when the AC is out, but when it's like 90-plus degrees and you're talking grammar kids, and you have these reports that have been given to us by parents, I think as a system, I think we have to take a deep look and do a deep examination and have some type of protocol. And that could be notifying the school committee and the mayor, maybe activating emergency management and having the outside nurse be assigned, if it needs to have the kids outside and extra patrol cars. There has to be some type of approach on this, similar to, I would say, the boiler being broken down. You would never send a kid to a school in the dead of winter in a freezing building because a boiler broke down. The converse of that would be 90-plus degree heat wave when you have the AC unit breaking down, and you're either reallocating students at times or sending out an email at the last second or doing late notifications or doing a piecemeal fashion. Again, mistakes will happen. We all make mistakes. But I think we have to learn from this going forward, but we have to shore up a process, and I would encourage that. Thank you.
Vice Chair?
Can I hear from the experts, other than an email that I got from a former member that apparently gets more calls than any of us, and I'm
I
sorry.
can only speak to the repairs. I'm not privy to what happened in the hallways there. I know that we were working on preventative maintenance so we could get it up and running. There were leaks. We called in somebody, emergency, come in and fix it, had to drain the whole system, fix it, took a whole day to fill it back up. As soon as we filled it back up, there were there's actually 8 valves that need to be replaced to the tune of $22,000. So we had them come in over the weekend and do those. It's up and running, it's cold air. It was addressed as fast as possible. I don't know what the protocol is when the nurse calls home, I can only speak to the repairs. I don't know if you spoke
I'll
to
do
the
that,
school.
yep. I'll speak to that part. So,
I mean, was it a mass casualty event? Because that's what it sounds like now, based off of the
well,
last two
I
things
will
I've heard.
say it was different than the Marsh event in that the timing of it made it a no-brainer at the Marsh in the situation. Our facilities department was trying to get ahead and was performing the preventative maintenance so that the system would run even better than it already was. The problem was once they relined the cooling tower and thought they would fill it with coolant, flip the switch, we're good to go. So whereas it was warm in the morning, they thought it would be cool an hour or so later when they flipped the switch and nothing happened, then they had to go in and start to change and figure out and assess what the problem was. So the expectation was that it would be up and running that day. And so Mr. Reeve let me know that it was warm in the building, but that our facilities department was working on it. We had made these fantastic improvements to it. It was a matter of time before we could get it up and running. One thing led to another, and it unveiled more and more problems, which required additional maintenance. So at that point, I did indicate to Mr. Reeve that it was optimal. I was in actually a policy subcommittee meeting at that time. If you recall, I stepped out. But I said that it was optimal to allow parents the opportunity to come and pick up their child, because at that point, we're in the middle of bus runs where if we were going to do a formal early release, we are up against the high school bus times and then interrupting the other times of the day. So that really wasn't an option at that point. So he did communicate via the Infinite Campus. Only one parent called my office. Her child had been one that had been sent home for not feeling well, and she hadn't received the communication. She was looking for talking points. Because it was a lengthier message, the principal had opted to use the Infinite Campus. So just like there was another parent event or family event in CGS that evening that had to be canceled due to the heat, we did the same at the Timony as well, and then provided updates in subsequent days. And so fortunately, we were able over the weekend to get those parts in into the system is up and running. I did go to the Timony the following day, went through the classrooms with Mr. Reeve with the temperature gauge, noted that some teachers had the windows and fans positioned in a way that it made a noticeable difference in the room and according to the gauge. And so we asked the custodians to help arrange that for teachers. I just wanted to point out, we do have some emergency binders for schools that should be revisited every year. I believe it was one of Dr. Kwong's goals a couple of years ago. I will say it needs to be updated because there's no language for circumstances like the one that we didn't anticipate, where it is the opportunity for parents to come and pick up their students. There's language for what would happen if it's a formal early release, like a blizzard kicks up that we weren't expecting, which has happened in the past. But I think that's a great idea. It's something that we had been planning on revisiting as well. But I agree, the communication is key. And I will say in our other buildings, we certainly have rooms that are warm to the degree where it's not comfortable for staff or students. The difference is in those circumstances, there are some cool spaces in the building to find relief, whether it's cafeteria or the auditorium. And in this instance, there was no areas with relief that day due to the circumstances that I explained. So certainly not acceptable by any means for students to be feeling uncomfortable or ill, and staff members of the same regard. I know that Mr. Reeve and Ms. Bozak, who oversees the nurses, did follow up with them as well. We can certainly work on streamlining our messaging. Our messages were going out in all different ways. I think people were trying to react, and then Mr. Reeve was trying to calibrate the message. So concerns echoed and heard loud and clear, and we'll work on streamlining those procedures moving forward.
The last thing I would say is, I mean, there's 1,300 students there. I don't know how midday you could release them all unless there's an emergency alert that would go out. So if maybe transition them to the high school, I don't know what that would have been, but it seems like you guys did as much as possible to make sure kids and staff were safe. If it was unbearable, I would assumed we would have had like an emergency alert, correct?
Yes, we could have gone with the phone call if we felt as if it were rising to that level. When students were feeling, and I will get the numbers for you for the nurse visits, remember what, but when students weren't feeling well, or some were being to feel nausea or just general discomfort, it's one thing to feel the heat, but then to sit in the room with a lot of other people for the day. I understand why it gets to be feeling uncomfortable. It's late in the day, and it would have been difficult to get the buses going. Had we been able to, and we felt it rose to that need earlier in the day, we could have done the robocall and certainly gone through that procedure.
One of a clarification.
Mm-hmm.
Was this a multi-day event? This involved more than one day? The breakdown, the repair, the restoration of the temperature to an adequate amount?
The one day was notable
Okay, so
of high
this-
temperatures. The subsequent day was
It's a
warm.
multi-day event. This occurred over multiple days.
The
This event.
Yes.
Okay.
The
Just
second,
want to clarify that.
okay, I just wanted to point out, the second day was uncomfortable, not to the degree of the first. Because fortunately, we had the forecast on our side, so it was not 90 degrees on that second day, which helped greatly. Thank goodness for that. But we did take the forecast into account.
Member Bias?
Thank you. So just to be clear, to point out, I did receive communication from parents about about this event of hot temperature. My question, well, more like statement after that explanation, sounds like that there was a repair, there was a expectation that the liquid would cool and everything would be fine. So to me, it sounds like there was a miscalculation of what was going to happen. And therefore, we didn't anticipate what was going to happen because there was that miscalculation of the cooling in the AC unit. So again, like Member Willett said, mistakes happen. But I mean, to say in terms of unanticipated, right, it was, to me, based on what was said, it sounds like a miscalculation that then created an unexpected event. But again, mistakes happen, move forward. But I'm glad that we have on our agenda a contract for communications and PR to see if we can make sure we can streamline communication to parents and notifications and see how we can train our staff on that. But I just wanted to let that be known for the record. Thank you.
Just to recap very quickly, and I appreciate what's going to happen, because we're going to have a comprehensive report. I think what you emphasized too was that there's a special dimension to the Timothy school as opposed to the other schools. In terms of the Timothy school is, if they have an issue, right, you really don't have a backup area, or did this cover the entire school? So with that case, that was a systemic event too. So this wasn't just partial. So that was another thing I want to have emphasized, is that this covered multiple days. Member bias is correct. There was a miscalculation. And the dimension of that school, right, encompassed the entire campus, as opposed to maybe you could have the kids sequestered in the cafeteria, or you could have the kids outside or in the gym and just do away with academics that day because there's an emergency protocol. That was the biggest concern I had. There was this multiple days. It impacted the entire campus. So that's why I need a comprehensive report on this. And I also want to have the details of how many visits there were to the nurse's office. And again, you know, I don't want to mischaracterize this as a mass casualty event. I never said that. But there definitely was a triage event. And whether we want to dismiss it or not, we have to, as a school committee, address these type of situations. We've been doing it for the last 3 years. So I'm not going to brush it under the rug, and I encourage anyone confidentially to want to reach out to me. And I also want to have people reach out to the superintendent's office to be on record, is that I had difficulty that day, my student came home. Let's just try to address the situation. I don't want this adversarial thing. I think there was a lack of communication at some part. I think there was a conflict in communication. You want to upgrade the emergency protocols. I think that's a good, healthy part of this conversation too. Thank you.
Any other comments, questions? All right, if not, next on the agenda, we have the 2026-2027 school choice vote. This is something that the committee had previously acted on, but I think in terms of effort to try to get it right into the process, is that correct?
Yes, we need to have the school choice vote following the school choice hearing. And in previous years, the school choice vote had followed the budget hearing, which I think qualified it there, but it didn't fall on that day this year. So just to follow protocol, we'd like to do it the right way. And I did receive the survey, which is much like a Google form from the state, where I need to submit the vote of the committee by June 1st.
So with that, I'll entertain a motion in a second to approve school choice for 2026, the upcoming school year.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's from Member Baez, the second is from Member Soroyce.
So, Mr. Chairman,
Member Willett.
just a clarification. The superintendent is advising us not to enter into school choice. So you are doing a motion to approve school choice, so a negative vote would be not to entertain into school choice. Is that correct? Okay, we're going to take that approach.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's in keeping with the memo.
So yes would be for school choice, no would be to no school
Correct.
choice. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Discussion? Member Keegan?
I think given our enrollment numbers that are declining and the fact that we need income, I would say open it up in kindergarten or first grade, 10 slots, and let's see how it works. And if it doesn't work, we can always say no next year, but, 10 slots gives us a para, or it gives us the activities for the elementary schools. So I think we need to try, and it's the only thing we can do to try to bring income into this city. So I'm a yes.
Member Suarez?
I was actually rethinking this, where we were revoting again. My only reason this year to vote against it is because I believe we've missed some timelines, and it would be a burden on the administration right now to try to get this set up for September. But I definitely am going to entertain it for next year. Thank you.
Other questions, discussion? Member Dunn?
No, I'm getting ready to take a vote.
Okay, sounds good. I will take a roll call vote.
Okay. So just to reiterate, a no vote means is against school choice, because we kind of went down a wrong road last time.
Yes.
Okay. So, Vice Chair DiZoglio.
Yeah.
Is that a no?
No to school choice.
No to school choice.
Okay, I just couldn't hear you.
Yeah.
Donovan Grassi, no. Member Baez?
Yes.
Member Keegan?
Yes.
McCarthy Soroyce?
No.
Member Willett?
No.
And Mayor Beauregard?
Yes,
So, okay,
fails, 3 yes, 4 no.
right.
So next on the agenda, we have the Constellations Resolution, proposed by Member Baez. We need a motion and a second to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Motions from Member Keegan, seconds from Member Soroyce. I'll open it up for discussion and invite Member Baez to speak. I will say, just for the sake of clarity, this is largely symbolic by way of, what's in front of us, where obviously the city council would ultimately make such a decision. But with that, I'll invite Member Baez to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and that clarification, of course. At the end of the day, the funding is at the will of the city council, as it is written in the resolution. A couple of things. First and foremost, this resolution isn't a vote to approve ACE pathways or special education programming. Because it is programming, and this is to the general public, because it is programming, I am under the understanding that this isn't something in a formal vote for the school committee. Rather, it is just implemented and understood by the administration. So this resolution is stating consensus, depending on how my colleagues vote here tonight, a consensus that we support such a program contingent upon the allocation of funds from the city council. Secondly, I'd like to point out that any procurement of a special education as confirmed by the Attorney General from the IG's office, Inspector General, has told us that that this type of funding and procurement is exempt from 30B. So it'd be something that we could move forward in terms of getting that funding before July 1st, noting that free cash is frozen on July 1st. The last thing that I wanted to mention before opening it up to the administration, and I know that Assistant Superintendent of Student Services isn't here to answer questions today regarding some due diligence that needs to be done. Perhaps those questions could still be aired and see what comes out, but is the fact that the community is asking for solutions. The community needs structural reform. And we're in a moment in time where we seem to have a municipal government, and school committee, city council, that is willing to invest in education in the best form that they can. that we have a municipal government that understands that this is the type of expenditure that free cash is best suited for. It's an investment. We're investing in our district, we're investing in our people, we're investing in the future in terms of special education needs, the market demands, the population of our students. I think that based on conversations that we've had in the past, this is something that is supported, but we'll see at the will of both the school committee and the city council. I am behind this, and I encourage my colleagues to vote with me on a yes supporting this and asking the city council for these funds. Thank you.
Other discussion? Member Donovan?
Yeah, I do think this is a great idea. I want to be clear about that. I had some questions last week. One was, do we know of any other community that has done some, let me back up. I do believe our community would be appreciative of this. I do believe we have a responsibility to our community to make sure we're getting the best. This has a feel to me of walking into a car dealership and saying, give me your I want that car. And then agreeing to the price without a little back and forth. That just makes me a little uncomfortable. I asked last week, is there a similar community that has used this that we could talk about? I didn't get an answer to that. And I know Ms. Bozak is on a well-deserved, she's not here tonight. So that kind of worries me. We're bringing in 13 behavior technicians. I'm told that's the best we could do. I just want to make sure we have the correct supervision for these people coming in, because we know in the past, sometimes working with contract workers, it's a little bit different, the supervision and holding everyone accountable. So I just worry about that. It's a great idea, but are we doing everything to make sure we're getting the best deal? And I don't have an answer to that. I don't have the expertise. And that's where I stand. It just makes me a little uneasy. I would feel a little bit better if, and I know this is symbolic, and I appreciate there's a lot of hope in this, but we need to understand when people leave our district for out-of-district placements, it'll be a while before we see any return. A while, because most people leave for out-of-district placements because they're not happy with what's going on in this. They're just not happy with what's being offered. It's never a sad goodbye. I think I've been involved in a lot of these situations. So I want us to be aware of that. It's not a quick fix. I would feel better if we had some specific accountability that we could say to our colleagues on the city council, here are some specific goals around this plan, like some SMART goals. We're asking for a whole lot of money. I want to make sure that along with this good deal, we're getting the best deal. And I feel badly I don't have an answer tonight from Ms. Bozak about that. You know what? You may have a lot more information. We haven't spoken recently about this. I think it's important that the superintendent weighs in, because it'll be her head on a platter if things go sideways. And that was a terrible image.
Well, I
I'm
hope
sorry.
not.
I hope not, too. I'm sorry about that.
No, I hear from your comments that you're wanting to make sure that we're making responsible choices and recommendations that will truly benefit the city. And I think I said last meeting, it's what did I say, calculated risk or reasonable risk or something to that degree. I think that would be a fruitful exercise for the committee to put together, like specifically what we would hope to get out of this, even if it's not a measurable mark by this year, this amount of money, but we have ideas for where this could lead. But I think with anything else, unless we're clear in articulating that, time gets away and then our timeline is pushed out. So even if it's something that's a common understanding, when you bring it to the council, that might be a smart idea of in this year, we would expect to see X, Y, and Z, because I do think it will take some time in order to find the gain financially. But I, from what I've heard of Constellations, and I feel more comfortable with them because we do have some of their staff in our schools right now, that there does seem to be a marked difference between staff coming from Constellations as opposed to other agencies. And I know the concerns that you're talking about. We haven't seen it with those staff members. And then we had I'd call it like a pilot experience this year where the program assistants moved through the professional development in various rooms, which I think was beneficial from all parties. So I do understand wanting to be sure that everyone's aware of the expectations. I think that's smart. And we are putting a certain level of trust in Constellations and their package that they're suggesting as being optimal. Because like you said, they're positing that they're the experts in the area and we're in need of the service. So I think it is in some ways a leap, but it could lead to some really wonderful things as well.
So, may I? So what would you recommend? I mean, when our colleagues on city council, we're asking for a lot. This is a lot of money. What would this be? And I know we have a way to go before it gets to them, right? A couple weeks. Am I right, Mayor?
So the next meeting would be on the 8th of June.
We'll be busy celebrating our new teachers here, our outstanding teachers that day. I just really wonder what we could put in place to say. I mean, obviously the contract we have to worry about. I'd want something specific, like if people don't show up, they don't get paid, which had been an issue, not with Constellations, but sometimes with contract workers. We expect something at the end of this year. We begin the process to look at what it takes to create, whether it's a day school, the licensing, the where we would put it, how, things like that. Because with that kind of money, our citizens, our students, our staff deserve to have, we need to be working towards something. And I just don't want it to fall off the cliff, especially when we're in such a financial bind. I believe in it. I trust our administration. But I think if we don't have an end game, it won't mean anything. And then what? So, thank you.
Quickly, before we go further, it's 8:54. We need a motion and a second to go past 9 o'clock.
So moved.
Second.
Motions from Member Keegan, seconds from the Vice Chair. All those in favor? Opposed? All right, we'll go past 9. Member Baez?
Thank you. So I just would like it to be known that our amazing Assistant Superintendent Bozak did present to us a presentation where she outlined phases of the plan of implementation and goals for first and second year specifically, knowing that there are different factors going into further than that in terms of redistricting, for example, which was considered in that plan. I'd also like it to be known as the acting superintendent and Member Donovan said that Constellations has been in our schools, which with great data, by the way, amazing data that even I was blown away, and I don't have the packet with me right now, but this isn't something that was just, first of all, came out of nowhere. This was a plan that was originally set in motion last year and has been talked about with other members of the school committee before my time that have been advocating for this. This isn't an idea that even I came up with, for example. It has been talked about before. It was a plan that was created last year in consultation with the assistant superintendent. I trust the administration and their implementation plans and what they brought forward. I don't think members of this committee really came up and said, well, we need to do this company or that company or this amount of money. It was really a plan that came from our trusted administration that spans over a year in terms of thinking about it, or even more than that probably. with a plan that came to us in terms of phases and how that may look like. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Member Baez. I have a few things to add. First of all, as I've stated before, I am completely in support of this notion of identifying areas for structural reform. Of course, I'm in favor of the measure that Member Baez has authored. It's symbolic, of course, but nevertheless, I'm a fan of the idea. I want to set some expectations, though, in a couple of different areas. So first of all, as I shared with the City Council, as I've been kind of beating this drum for a long time now, we have several different areas of our budget that are budget busters. They include, of course, the out-of-district tuitions that we pay for special ed. Health insurance is one of the biggest. Tipping fees for trash, like these are the areas that we're really trying to hone in on and find some solutions and identify areas for reform. I will say that in my role as mayor, there are so many different areas that we need to tackle in terms of structural reforms. I need to also be realistic and cognizant of triaging those as well. And so right out of the gate, as I've mentioned previously in public, the most critical area right now, as we sit here at the end of May 2026, that we need major structural reform is the area of employee health insurance. Just to keep expectations clear, when I go before the City Council on the 8th of June, I will be asking them right out of the gate for 3 drawdowns from free cash so that we can end the fiscal year without any deficit issues. So right out of the gate, we have $2.5 million roughly that needs to be paid in terms of snow and ice expenditures. That's something that we are allowed to maintain a deficit to an extent. However, that's an area that we need to close the books on by June 30th, and we have to deal with that every year. Secondly, I've committed, as we all know, $2 million to fund one-time expenditures, namely in the context of special ed costs. So that will be an ask to help with the fiscal year 27 personnel situation in the schools. And then the other thing that, at this point, the exact amount that we're going to need to take out of free cash, we're still in the process of calculating this. But again, this is becoming an annual occurrence because we're not ultimately dealing with these health insurance issues. We have a deficit in the health insurance trust running at a 110% loss ratio, as I've said to the council. That means that for every dollar we take in premiums, we're putting out $1.10 in claims. And so this is an area that is going to require major reforms, and we're well on our way towards identifying solutions for that. But again, these are the areas that we absolutely must prioritize. Now, I will say, though, when it comes to this process of deciding on, say, constellations, right? Although it is exempt, right? This is an area where, as Member Donovan has shared, due diligence is our friend, just to ensure that we're identifying the absolute best deal for our schools. And so I think, the key for us is to pursue this reform full bore, but do it in a way where we're ensuring that we're tackling it the right way as well. So trying to balance that. I think also that this is a potential opportunity for us to collaborate with our soon-to-be new grant procurement function that we are in the process of trying to contract for. That's going to be on the next agenda as well. So there are different ways that I think we can tackle this. I am 100% in favor. We need to pursue this. But at the same time, I just want to manage expectations, and I don't want to speak for the council and assume that they would be comfortable with such a massive drawdown all at once out of free cash, but it is something, again, as Member Baez referenced, this is what we ought to be using these one-time funds for, to make these investments so that we can get on the road to sustainability. So I'm committed to that. We will get this done. I think it's just a matter of getting it right from a timing standpoint, things like that. So I thought I would share some of those insights. Any other discussion?
Chair, we vote?
Yeah, let's take a vote.
Okay. Vice Chair DeZoglio? Oh, he left. He'll be back. Okay. Donovan Grassi, oh, yes. Baez?
Yes.
Keegan?
Yes.
McCarthy Royce?
Yes.
Willett?
Yes.
And Beauregard?
Yes. Next, we have on the agenda the bus stop traffic violation monitoring system. This is proposed by Member Baez. This is a policy order approving the establishment of such a system. This is an area that, we've adopted state statute on the city level with the council, but this is something that is not, I don't think, reflected in our school committee policy. So with that, we'll take a motion in a second to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Motions from Member Keegan, seconds from Member Soroyce. We'll entertain discussion. Member Baez?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I was reviewing the language in the state statutes and came across the fact that the governing body that needs to approve such a system is the school committee. While the city council did pass an ordinance, great, the school committee does have to have a formal vote. So this is just mostly procedural. The language in here, as you can see, is nothing extraordinary. It's just affirming the city council's vote of their ordinance. The one thing that I will say is that in the creation of the city council ordinance, it was before my time, so I'm not privy to the details in terms of input from the schools, from the administration. Furthermore, as you construct this RFP, I think that there are important aspects to it in terms of a pilot program, in terms of revenue, monthly revenue receiving in contrary to quarterly expenditures in terms of the camera leases, all these different education for the public, driver's ed education, like these are different aspects to the RFP that I would hope that you and your team are open to input and suggestion and would allow either a representative of the school committee or the administration, if they're so amendable to joining, to giving that input in terms of the RFP and award contracts, or conditions of the award. But yeah, this is mostly procedural in terms of that it needs to happen for it to go into effect, but also would like to know if you're amendable to having some input in terms of the RFP.
Absolutely. So legal has wrapped up drafting the RFP with the procurement folks, which is great. However, certainly willing to incorporate any feedback from this process as well. Any other discussion? Member Willett?
I'm just a little concerned, and maybe I should be partially to blame because I should have read the chapter law, the session law, 390 on it. But we have a city solicitor department, and if it was incumbent upon a vote of the school committee, at some point, we should have probably been notified to fast-track this. Obviously, I'm in favor of an RFP if that was deemed necessary. I thought we could bypass that, but again, I'll err on the side of caution. I just thought that in the future, when we have a session law that maybe applies to us as a school committee, as a school department, maybe we could maybe get a copy of that, just for the edification of the school committee. And again, I take partial to blame for it. I should have read the session law myself. I'm glad Member Baez caught it. Maybe in my 50s, that's an issue for me. I got get checked out, but I'm just concerned that the school committee should have had the authority a long time ago to take that formal vote. I don't think there's anybody objecting within the community, so I think just for, again, future protocol, I think that's something that we should look into. Thank you.
Sure. So just to clarify, typically, in order for a municipality to adopt provisions of Massachusetts general law, that does require the city council to take that formal vote. Perhaps there's a provision somewhere in this specific statute that also requires kind of like a parallel approval by the school committee. I will say, speaking about the question of whether, it made sense to pursue the RFP route, I actually reached out to Jeff Shapiro, who is the Inspector General of the Commonwealth, with a question about this, about whether this is something that we could possibly, engage in contracting with a vendor without needing to go through the procurement process. He stated that although this is relatively new, the legislature only established this statute in the past year or so, given the fact that it's relatively novel, and also he stated to me that it's not explicitly exempt under 30B. His recommendation is, out of an abundance of caution as a best practice, was to go to bid for it, just to clarify. Vice Chair?
So I don't know, maybe it's in my 40s that I'm getting old age and forgetting things too, but the city council voted on this over a year ago with the police chief tied to it, if I recall, Mayor. And it passed with the idea that the RFP was going to happen, or at least the contract negotiations were going to happen with NRT. Mr. Goslin, did any of that happen?
We met with one group in the mayor's office. I don't know the company's name, but I know that there was another one that came in, and there was a contract that was sent to us. And after reading it, I wasn't, myself and Dr. Kwong were not thrilled with the financial language, at which point we sent it up to City Hall, and I know that the solicitor's office was also going, and Maggie were going through the contract, looking specifically at the financial pieces. I believe at some point, they determined that maybe we should look at several companies, and hence the RFQ.
So yeah, that's exactly right. So the issue that came up was there's this pitch that some of these companies are making that, there will be absolutely no cost to the municipality. All it can do is generate revenue for you. And that led to some other questions about, okay, well, what happens if hypothetically there are no violations, right? Which is unlikely. However, if you were to follow it to its logical conclusion, how does that work? Where, okay, we're not being charged anything for this type of service. But beyond that, there was, I know, a provision made in the NRT contract that allowed for kind of a catch-all.
Correct.
Correct me if I'm wrong?
And I've spoken with NRT specifically about this, and they're looking forward to it. The drivers want it, they want it. They don't like it when people pass a school bus. The technology is way better than what they have now. So they're all on board, should the city decide to go that way.
So the last question I have, though, is we're going through a third party. NRT is the company. Couldn't they just pick the company and we're paying for it? I mean, in theory, they're the supplier. If they outsource that technology to someone else, why would that fall on the
No.
city?
Technically, I believe the contract is with us because they're sending out our bills, our tickets, collecting our money, paying that's where the conversation is. Not so much of the hardware's on their bus.
So it's the collection part.
Yeah, it's more of the collection piece and the monitoring of it. They have people who, I don't know if you've ever seen
I saw Danvers' video of it.
Yeah,
so
it's
they're-
pretty impressive.
Yeah,
It's pretty
yeah.
impressive. They have people who watch it live, or pretty much live, to make sure it's actually a violation before they send it to the police, et cetera, et cetera. It's pretty impressive product. It's just, devil's in the details,
And the way that the process was sort of unfolding, it was kind of one of those situations where enthusiastic vendors are like, here is a contract,
Yep.
sign here, boy, on the dotted line. No need to ask any other questions. I don't do that.
I remember a police inventory system that we did that on. Do you remember that one?
Right, yeah.
Correct, and this is part of the way we fixed that issue in terms of doing things right.
Yes.
And that's why having input in that RFP process would be very optimal, because there are some things there that could protect the schools in the city. And another question, and this is for you, Mr. Mayor, is there a commitment or a mechanism for revenue to come back to the schools?
So my intent ultimately is to establish some type of a revolving fund. I would love for the revenue from this to go into some type of funding mechanism to help pay for our transportation needs, the NRT contract, perhaps, things like that. That's my intent,
Perfect, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
of course. Member Willett?
I mean, it's difficult to gauge, but can we get any sense of a timeline for landing this plane? Can we anticipate for the new school year to have this implemented? Or what's the sense?
Yeah, the goal at this point, I think our timeline is reasonably lining up well, where we have the RFP ready to go out. We can incorporate additional feedback from the committee as part of this, for sure. So once that is finally established with that feedback, it's a matter of posting it, getting it out there, going through the regular process, and then selecting a vendor, awarding the contract as we usually do, and then given the fact that we're doing this in the month of June, probably, I think the timing should work in our favor for the fall.
All right, thank
That's
you.
the hope. Any other questions?
Okay.
Let's vote.
Vice Chair DeZoglio?
Yes.
Donovan Grassi, yes. Baez?
Yes.
Member Keegan?
Yes.
McCarthy Saros?
Yes.
Member Willett?
Yes.
And Mayor Beauregard.
Yes. Next on the agenda, we have the selection of a member to serve on the Wellness Committee. I'll open up the floor for nominations for the Wellness Committee.
Mr. Mayor, just for some context, so the Wellness Committee is comprised of administration, students and parents and whatnot. We did have someone that was taking that initiative, no longer is doing that. I'd just like to give the opportunity for administration to kind of give a little bit of context in terms of what's the plan, because we do need to have that policy come back with guidelines, and we need to see how we do that. But I was just wondering if there was a plan in terms of that coming back to us.
So this was the committee that executes what we call the wellness program, which is the policy that we've been working on. So the policy points to the procedure. The procedure is largely created and impacted by the wellness committee for your approval. So the last time this group convened last year, it took a full year worth of meetings to work out the details and to come up with the final product. And that's where we ran into a problem with Mr. Frady, who presented, and then it got kicked back to the policy subcommittee, and we teased out that the difference between the procedure piece and the policy piece. And so we're at the point now where we need to reassemble the committee. But again, seeing as it took a full year to work that out and to get enough input for the various stakeholders, we do have a starting point, which I'd like to consider that work. That was grant funded and came through the regulations from the state. So I don't want to discount everything that's been done. I think that's a good launch pad for the committee to look at and discuss. We do have some grant funding that's set to expire relatively soon that I could use to potentially stipend educators who are working into the summer or beyond their work days to take part on this committee. But I don't want to say that I'd have a product before we meet again in August. I think that would be irresponsible of me to say that. But that would be the goal.
So just to clarify, looking for one
Yep.
member to be nominated.
Just one member to join.
Do we have any nominations?
I could nominate Member Baez.
Thank you, I accept.
Okay. So Member Baez has been nominated, and he accepts the nomination. Are there any other nominations? If not, we'll take a roll call vote on the appointment of Member Baez. I'll call the,
That's right, I have, she left it with me.
oh, good, okay. We still have a quorum. We'll take the roll call.
Yep. Let's see, Vice Chair DeZoglio.
Yes.
Member Grassi is not in the room. Member Baez?
Yes.
Member Keegan?
Yes.
Member McCarthy Royce, yes. Member Willett is not in the room. And Mayor Beauregard.
Yes.
Passes.
Next on the agenda, we have the establishment of ice rink rates for fiscal year '27 and fiscal year 28, 27, 28. Do we need, we need a motion and a second to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Motions from Member Keegan, the seconds from Member Royce. Mr. Goslin, any context?
Did you have a question?
I have a question, but I'll listen to you first.
Why don't you go with your question?
26, 27, that's current rate, right? Going, or
School year.
current school year. So 27, 28 is going to be this
Well,
September.
next school year is 26, 27.
Okay, so that's what it is.
Next year,
Okay.
yep.
Is there a
September
rea-
26th
Yeah.
to May
Got it.
27.
Got it, all right, so that's school year, not fiscal year?
Yep.
Okay, because we're going to fiscal year 27, so I'm
Yep.
looking at fiscal 27, but you see school year. Because I see FY 26.
Yeah, I
and
should have changed that to school
and
year as well.
That's why, okay.
Yep. I apologize.
But go ahead, I'm all set for it now until my next question.
I will tell you that Methuen Youth Hockey, I don't know how many of you guys remember, but when we bought the Zamboni, we had to put $50,000 down for a $130,000 machine, and we just didn't have that money sitting around. Methuen Youth Hockey put up those funds, and in return, the hours they used after that, we took $20 off an hour until we paid back the $50,000. So it just got paid off, and so now they're going to see, it's going to be a $20 bump in their eyes because that offset is going to disappear. So I tried to keep them at the same level for 1 year before they saw a modest bump.
So I see the Valley League and outside peak hours,
Yep.
we're at 292.50 and then 300 the following year. But in summer, May 1st through August 31st, I would feel like it's probably more expensive to keep the ice rink cold. Am I wrong?
More expensive, but it's harder to get people to come.
Okay,
So if we put those prices up, we wouldn't have anybody.
okay.
So I try to be lower than everybody else, but high enough that we can maintain.
So question here is, do we see any other ice rinks in the area opened during this time? Like, I'm not sure if the Lawrence one's open. or-
I know some of them stay open year-round.
Yeah.
Don't ask me which ones.
I know
but
Salem, New Hampshire does, but
yeah.
I'm not sure.
I'm pretty
if
sure
the
Haverhill
Ford-
does too.
Haverhill, yeah.
Not Haverhill High, but the
The,
Ward Hill.
Ward Hill, yep, yep. I'm fine with this. I mean, I just, the only thing is I hate not like rounded up numbers, like 290, 250, like for some reason, that's the business guy in me. Like,
I literally said $15 over 2 years, and I split the difference.
Yeah.
I mean, we could go 295 and 300, or we could go 290 and,
live with it.
I'm
for
the
1
same
year.
way, so
I just, and what was our revenue this year?
I'll get that for you. I didn't bring that. I'll have it for the next meeting.
All right. I'm fine with this at 292.50, I guess.
Any other discussion? Member Schwartz?
What, was last year the first year the ice rink was open during the summer?
No, it's actually been a couple of years.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And is it,
We actually dealt with
lucratively?
it during COVID.
and is it, it's supporting itself during the summer?
Yeah.
We're getting enough activity?
Yeah, we're actually starting to get more. We opened it right before COVID, and then we hit COVID, and it was really difficult then.
Right.
But now it's starting to pick up.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Member Keegan?
Will these rates be enough to generate revenue to be able to replace the boards?
No,
Okay, thank you.
you're welcome.
All right, if there's no other discussion, we'll vote. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Next on the agenda, we have the Apple device resale. We need a motion and a second to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's from Member Soroy, second is from Member Keegan. Discussion?
Just want to, every year we do this, and every year I put it in with the Apple lease and the Chromebook lease, that we auction off the devices that are no longer usable. And we always have a conversation about it, but I never actually have the school committee vote. Last year, when we got the funds back, I had a hard time depositing it because there was no school committee vote to go out for the auction. I might actually bring another memo to your next meeting for last year, just so that all the i's are dotted and the t's are crossed. But we do it every year, and we get all kinds of people who bid on it, and they come out and look at it. And usually we make around, I don't know, $50,000, and we use that, last year we used it to offset some of the insurance we use on Chromebooks, et cetera. So,
Any other discussion?
Nope.
If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Next on the agenda, we have contract awards. First up is John Guilfoyle, Public Relations. We need a motion and a second to approve.
Second.
Motions from the Vice Chair, seconds from Member Soroyce. Discussion? There's no discussion. We'll vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Next on the agenda, we have Zeal Education. This is for the superintendent search firm. We need a motion and a second to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Motions from Member Keegan, seconds from Member Soroyce. Discussion?
I have one question to Mr. Goslin. Is there any way that we can pay up front a large chunk of this now, and then the rest?
the search,
Yeah. Like, almost like a retainer?
I typically don't pay for services before I get them. Just, it's, you know, I don't have a problem paying a good portion of it so that it hits this year's budget, not next year's budget. But I wouldn't be comfortable paying the whole thing in hopes that they do the search.
Okay.
Any other discussion? If not, we'll vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Next on the agenda, we have Adam Schindler Plumbing and Heating for boiler repair at 10 Ditson Place. We need a motion and a second to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Motions from Member Keegan, seconds from Member Soroyce. Discussion? There's no discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Next on the agenda, we have the Youth Center lease addendum. Need a motion and a second to approve.
So moved.
Motions from Member Baez. We have a second? Seconds from Member Keegan. Vice Chair.
I just feel bad. The director's been here all night, and she stepped out the one time that we had this here. The one question I had is, this is right-sizing the current lease, right? Because they already have this
Yeah,
space.
it's my understanding that the wrong number was in the original lease. And I know, I believe Dr. Kwong had brought it to you guys previously, or brought it to city
She
council.
brought it to the city council, we
Yeah.
sent it back, and
Yeah.
I don't know why it didn't go
I
any
believe it
further.
was pretty much an oversight on the square footage.
Okay. Now, I know there was a question about using the kitchen, or they're already using the kitchen. Am I correct?
As far as I know, they're not using the kitchen, because right now I have probably 50 cases of stuff that needs to be shredded there. So I don't think they're using it. I don't know if their intent is to.
They do intend to. I think
Okay.
they're waiting for our shredding.
So is that also another lease agreement? The
That's
kitchen-
all part of the,
That's all part of
Yep.
the contract. All right. I'm also trying to stall, but I'm not, I feel bad that we're voting on this now. But otherwise, I'm all set with this, thank you.
Member Keegan?
So if I'm reading this correctly, the part that's being amended is that the lessee may sublet to partners and nonprofits in the surrounding communities upon approval? Is-
I can set
I was gonna
it
say,
up. Oh.
I thought it was just the square footage.
So I'm confused about that.
Yes,
because I'm-
that's the real change. The square
thought
footage,
the
I went
square
back to the documents from the fall.
Yep.
And I found the meeting where that had been discussed and rectified. And so the change here is for the ability to sublease. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Good evening. Didn't even expect I was speaking today. Good evening, everyone. I am Kelly Ford. I'm the executive director of the Methuen Youth Community Center, and so obviously, what's here on the agenda is to sublease some of our space to other nonprofits in the Methuen area and other partners that we also have. It's just another way to generate revenue to keep our sustainability to continue the youth center as is, and so. I feel bad because I'm like, I didn't hear the first part of what you were talking about, but in terms of like the square footage, we just really wanted to identify like correctly, like what was our space. That was just it for that. But again, just another way to sustain our, having staffing, having programming, and keeping it free for the community. That's why we need to be able to sublease and to have like rental opportunities to be able to help support our mission and our initiatives. Any questions?
Yes, I just had a question in terms of, do you have a plan in motion? Like, is this a goal, or is this a plan, a goal? Like, is there already ideas going on?
Oh yeah, there's several ideas different. We have already partnered with the Greater Lawrence Fellowship of the Arts, and so they're going to be providing us like cognitive behavioral therapy, doing with the arts. She is here in Methuen, but it's also another opportunity for them to be able to use our space to deliver those program services. So creative expression, theater, dance, art. And so looking at different vendors that can come and to still be able to give that to our youth, but also co-working spaces for other nonprofits that are in the area as well.
Thank you. And my last question is to the administration. I know I recently took a tour, and there's a lot of interesting stuff of ours in that space, and some stuff that I was interested in, like records from 1965 or something, things that could be probably preserved. But is there already a plan in motion to make sure that the stuff that needs to be taken care of or taken out of the building is being taken out of the building? I know we have a million things to do, but I have to ask.
Yeah, so far there's been items that were in the building have been taken out, and then in terms of like the historical records that you're talking about, like there's one in there that was around when the Titanic sunk. Just put them things in perspective. I personally like history, so I've been kind of stewarding those, but would love to give them back so they can, be stored where they properly need to be. But DPW was really gracious. They cleared out the space. I really have to give a big thank you to the women in that department. They really made that move. And so super really grateful for that. And then so we're just kind of like plugging away. We're doing our summer initiative this summer, and so we're just really trying to hope to get this thing kind of moving and grooving.
Thank you.
Any other questions? If not, we'll vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have
No.
it. All right, we have a no from Member Keegan.
Roll
We'll do
call.
Roll call.
Roll call. Let's do roll call. Chair DeZoglio,
Yes.
Donovan Grassi, yes. Baez?
Yes.
Keegan,
No.
McCarthy Soroyce,
Yes.
Willett,
Yes.
and Mayor Beauregard.
Yes. All right, it is approved.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Just a point of inquiry, though. Does this have to go to city council now? Because I'm curious.
We can confirm process with you. I don't want to answer that on the
Okay.
floor.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.